Chapter 137. When Sun Yilin entered the palace, there were some things that he needed to inform the Empress. It was not a wise choice to let his mother bear this responsibility. Yilin, you must know that this will have a great impact on your reputation. The Empress frowned. If Qinyang bears this responsibility, the impact will be equally great. Qinyang will not be able to get away with it and may even be labeled as unfilial. The result will be worse. The best way is to prove that the child is not Qinyang's. In fact, Sun Yilin did not care about his reputation at all. He could not marry the girl he liked, so he did not have to worry that his reputation would affect her. After knowing the Empress's ambition, her importance to him was completely out of using him. Thus, it was better for him to have less influence among the scholars. With a person like Jin Qinhuang in the dark, it was hard to say who would be the final winner. In fact, Sun Yilin had subconsciously leaned towards Jin Qinhuang. It was better not to know some things. Once you know, you will find that Jin Qinhuang's ability was much stronger than the other princes. Moreover, from his usual style, it could be seen that he was not a person who was willing to submit to others. Moreover, he had already cut off his own path of retreat. He would not give up that position to anyone. Even if he could not get it legitimately, he was bound to use extreme means. He did not care about his reputation, did not care about the world's evaluation of him, and naturally did not care about what kind of stroke he would leave in the history books. In this case, in front of people who did not belong to his camp, it was the wisest to reduce his presence. Unfortunately, Sun Yilin would not know that his approach did not have any effect. From the moment he took a fancy to Jingwan, he had already become a thorn in Li Hongyuan's side. No matter how low-key he was, it was meaningless. This kind of thing is the most difficult to prove. How do you want to prove it? Find the child's biological father and it will be over. Sun Yilin said indifferently. The Empress looked at Sun Yilin. Recently he had changed more and more, especially his temperament. She was not very clear about the reason. Are you 100% sure that the child is not yours? Sun Yilin furrowed his brows. Although the woman from the Shen family claimed that the child was his, he said, I haven't investigated the exact situation. There's an 80% chance that it's not his. But the remaining 20%, even if it is his, we must make sure that it isn't. As for what kind of consequences this would have on the Shen family's daughter, it was completely out of his consideration. He had never been a saint. It was true that the culprit who ruined his marriage was his mother, but the Shen family's daughter was the fuse that ignited the fire. As for his mother's attitude towards Jingwan, even if this matter did not happen, she would most likely make other troubles. Perhaps from the beginning, it was destined that his marriage would not be successful. Sun Yilin refused to think more about it. In the end, Sun Yilin mocked himself. Actually, he might have been in the wrong in this matter. He had underestimated how much his mother cared about Jingwan. If he had been prepared from the beginning, perhaps he would have known his mother's thoughts earlier and had a good talk with her. Things might not have turned out this way. After calming down, Sun Yilin actually found some suspicious points. For example, how did the Shen family's daughter get involved with his mother? If she really found out that he was pregnant, shouldn't she look for his family members first? Why did she think that it would be better for her to find his mother? Sun Yilin always felt that there was something fishy about it. Although he didn't want to face his mother, he still had to ask about the specifics. The Empress agreed to Sun Yilin's request. However, her sister-in-law didn't take her words to heart and did something stupid again. It seemed that she had to be given some practical training to learn her lesson. As a result, Duchess Ding, who held the power of Ding General Manor, was deprived of all her rights and divided by several daughters-in-law and sisters-in-law. This blow was not small for Duchess Ding. In the inner residence, without the right to preside over the internal affairs, it meant that she might have to make a living under others. Although her status was still there, it was not so bad. However, from her previous power, she might not be able to order many people around. The loss was too great. Looking at his mother's irritable state, Sun Yilin was a little glad that her power was taken away after he found her and asked about the matter clearly. He wanted to delay the engagement, but the Luo family didn't think so. The reason they gave him was very legitimate. If they didn't want his mother to be exposed, it was better to break off the engagement before he found out the matter clearly. But in this way, Jingwan would really bear a bad reputation of being jealous and intolerant. Sun Yilin cared about it very much, but Luo Peishan and Madame Luo didn't care because Jingwan had a way out. It didn't matter if her reputation was a little bad. Moreover, as far as the royal family was concerned, jealousy was nothing. As long as the emperor was willing, he could send as many women as he wanted to his son and even his relatives. Sun Yilin felt very guilty. He felt that the Luo family sacrificed Jingwan's reputation in order to protect his mother's reputation, which made him more and more ashamed. In fact, he also thought that after he figured out the matter, the Luo family would have no reason to break off the engagement, at least on the surface. The Luo family's attitude made him feel ashamed. He really couldn't force Jingwan to be tied up. This was really a beautiful misunderstanding. In fact, it should be known that Duchess Ding trampled on Jingwan's face like this. Would the Luo family think of her by repaying evil with good? How stupid and naive was he to think so? Was Sun Yilin stupid? Couldn't he think of this? Didn't he doubt why the Luo family was in a hurry to break off the engagement at this time? Probably they really hated his mother and were worried that he would not let her go. Apart from this, Sun Yilin couldn't think of any other reason. He had clearly felt his mother's extremism and stubbornness. It was more realistic to expect her to accept Jingwan as her daughter-in-law. Sun Yilin opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything to save it. In fact, we can wait until this matter is settled and then break off the engagement on the grounds of incompatibility. It's not good for the third young lady to break off the engagement now. Since we have decided to break off the engagement, it's naturally better to be straightforward. Our Luo family can't let people who have nothing to do stand in front of us. This kind of involvement was really unnecessary. Luo Peishan was really for Sun Yilin's good. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Li Hongyuan would deal with him. When the living king of hell made a move, he could make a move with a 120% effect. I don't mind. Don't say such stupid things. Sun Yilin said this sentence from Luo Peishan for the second time, with the care and persuasion of an elder. After the discussion, the engagement was quickly broken off. Sun Yilin originally wanted to see Jingwan, but naturally he didn't see her. However, he met with Sun Yijia. Even though she knew what her fifth brother wanted to know, Sun Yijia still didn't say a word. Not only because it would make him sadder if she told him Jingwan's true attitude, but also because it was really not a wise move to reveal her sister-in-law's matter to an outsider. Sun Yijia simply told him about her situation. She was doing well in the Luo family. Whether it was the elders or Luo Jingbua, their attitude towards her had not changed. With the third young lady of the Luo family, I don't have to worry about you. However, I hope that you can be happy in this life, together with fifth brother's part. Fifth brother. Sun Yijia looked at Sun Yilin, who was obviously thinner, and felt very distressed. Was he really going to bury all the good things together because he couldn't marry Sister Wan? Don't worry about me. I'm fine. If you don't want to go back to Duke Dinggua's mansion, then try not to go back. Because Sun Yilin was dealing with things here, he naturally didn't ask about the other side. Things related to Jingwan were naturally more important than that side, even if it was breaking off the engagement. Because he didn't show up, the conflict between the Shin family and Duke Dinggua's mansion became fiercer and fiercer. Moreover, because someone secretly added fuel to the fire, almost everyone knew that a daughter of the Shin family was pregnant before marriage. That's right, it was a daughter of the Shin family, not a specific one. Therefore, the young ladies of the Shin family, especially those who were of marriageable age, were affected. None of them dared to go out because once they went out, there would be the chance that someone would look at their lower abdomens. Some people even brazenly asked about it. They were ashamed, annoyed, and angry. They hid at home and didn't dare to go out, especially those who were in the middle of a marriage discussion. The marriage was very likely to fall apart. God knew how many times they hid in their rooms and cried. The culprit was naturally the most unlucky one. She got into trouble one after another, and all kinds of humiliation and curses made her almost collapse. Perhaps because they still needed the bastard in her belly for the time being, the wife of the right governor appropriately stopped them. However, she only stopped them from punching and kicking each other. The culprit, concubine Qin, suffered. The other concubines vented all their anger on her because their daughters were implicated. Obviously, Prince Rui's faction didn't expect such a one-sided situation that was very unfavorable to the Shin family. After Shin Shuhan figured out the whole thing, he communicated with Prince Rui. The whole faction of Prince Rui worked hard to put the Shin family in the position of the victim. However, once this kind of thing happened, it had a particularly big impact on women. Sometimes it was obvious that the girls were raped, but they were still called shameless, vulgar, and all kinds of insults. This time the nature of the matter was a little different. After all, Sun Yilan's reputation was very good in the past, and there was no stain on his reputation. It was reasonable to say that it would be particularly bright if it was suddenly stained. In addition, it was easy to attract other people's attention to him deep in the mountain, and thus weaken the Shen family. But obviously the original goal was not achieved. The memorial accusing Shen Shihan of not teaching his daughter well was spread like snowflakes on Lu Qingdi's imperial desk. What did this mean? It only meant that the other side was too arrogant. They had fought back and forth countless times and there were wins and losses between them. But this time they seemed to have lost a little too badly. Prince Rui flew into a rage and Prince Kong was naturally jubilant. However, there were still some people who felt that there was a problem, and one of them was Sun Yilan. After he dealt with the matter of the engagement, he found out that Prince Kang's faction didn't have such a strong control over the public opinion. There must be a third party behind this matter. Who was it? The Gong Prince? Or the Jin Prince? In Sun Yilan's view, the latter was more likely. But what was his purpose in doing this? In fact, he didn't need to intervene in this matter. Even if he intervened, shouldn't he treat both sides equally, and just make the overall situation more chaotic? This was in line with his interests. No, only he knew part of the Jin Prince's true situation. Other people didn't know. If the situation was too chaotic, beyond the scope of control of either side, it would certainly arouse the suspicions of many old foxes. Only this kind of one-sided situation made Prince Rui's faction believe that Prince Kang's faction was stirring up trouble. But why did he help himself and not the Shen family? According to reason, even if it was for the sake of Imperial Consort Su, he should help the Shen family. When Luo Peishan Darren talked about this situation with his old wife, he couldn't help but sigh again. Why are you sighing? Old Madame Luo didn't understand. I'm worried that our family's third girl will become an enchantress who will bring disaster to the country in the future. That Shu daughter of the Luo family stepped on third girl's face, and Jin Prince wants to throw the entire Shen family into it. I'm afraid that this matter will only become more and more intense, and if things don't go well, even the married Shen family's daughter will be implicated. Jin Prince's selfish desires are so heavy in the future. As long as third girl has a bit of preference, wouldn't it be possible to make a big deal out of it? Old Madame Luo directly gave him a supercilious look. You still don't know what kind of temperament Wanwan has. At her age, she has always adhered to her original heart. In the future, would she be narrowed her eyes and lose her sense of propriety? If she really encountered something that shouldn't be done, Wanwan would naturally advise her a bit. When that Shen family's daughter knelt in front of the Luo family's door and made a big deal out of it, she should have thought that there might be such a consequence. I don't think Jin Prince did anything wrong. Luo Darren chose to shut up. He could see clearly that when it came to third girl, his own old wife and Jin Prince's thoughts happened to coincide. Alright, this engagement had been dissolved and it would not be announced to the public for the time being. Everyone's attention was on that side, and for the time being, no one would have any ideas about third girl. It was proper for him to take advantage of this time to familiarize himself with the Ministry of Personnel. Old Madame Luo pondered. It was reasonable to say that Duchess Ding Guofuren was the culprit. Jin Prince chose to make a move against Shen family and not Ding Guofu, which seemed to be somewhat unreasonable. Li Hongyuan pushed for the previous matter, but he didn't want them to make it public. Shen family was stabbing a knife in the open, but in Ding Guofu, it was a knife in the dark, and it was specifically aimed at Duchess Ding Guofuren. What people cared about the most was what they wanted her to lose. The higher one was, the more they wanted you to be as low as mud. In the past 2 days, the relatives and friends of Ding Guofu didn't come to visit Duchess Ding Guofuren. They ridiculed her openly and implicitly and cursed Sun Yilan. Duchess Ding Guofuren was so angry that her whole body trembled. But when she showed off her power and prestige, no one paid attention to her. There were even some bold ones who directly resisted. She was so angry that her heart was attacked several times. In the end, she fell ill and her body collapsed. If she could recuperate well, there might be a day when she got better. However, all kinds of accusations and all kinds of humiliation made her bear too much pressure. Not to mention being calm and peaceful, let alone reflecting, she became more and more paranoid. She refused to take medicine properly, often smashed things, and even wanted Sun Yilan to personally take care of her. Sun Yilan had to enter the palace to do errands and was busy investigating who the child in Shen family's daughter's belly was. He didn't recover so quickly after breaking off the engagement with Jingwan. His mother was still desperately tossing and turning. Could be said that she was mentally and physically exhausted. Duchess Dingguafuren was drinking medicine when she suddenly knocked over the medicine bowl. You unfilial son, do you also wish that I would die now so that you can marry that vixen of the Luo family? After a while she cried miserably. Yilin, I will immediately arrange another marriage for you. Can you get married right away? She was probably really afraid that son Yilin would never marry again in his life. She began to lose her temper when she didn't get a response. Son Yilin was silent, then got up and left, ignoring his brothers and sisters-in-law inside and outside the house. He didn't even bother to look at Sun Yibin's provocation. As for what was behind him, son Yilin, I'm telling you I won't die so easily. Don't even think about marrying that vixen of the Luo family. He also ignored it. Son Yilin sometimes wondered how his mother became like this today. In the past she also had to be tolerant, restrained, dignified and virtuous. Although she was strict, she was also gentle. But now, the Shin family was badly battered, so naturally they wouldn't let son Yilin go. When son Yilin was ruthless, he could also stab people until they were black and blue. He spoke without any vulgarities, degrading the girl of the Shin family to be worse than a prostitute in a brothel. Moreover, he had asked the doctor of the Luo family about how long the child had been possessed. It had been more than 3 months, and the other party insisted that it was his. He basically confirmed the time and place of the incident. It was not long before Jingwan came to the capital, and Prince Kong invited her to the imperial plantation outside the city. In fact, it wasn't that difficult to be bad. However, he did drink too much at that time. Just as he was about to deal with them one by one, someone took the initiative to stand up. It was none other than Prince Kong. Son Yilin wasn't sure if it was really him or the Empress asked him to stand up. However, since someone took the blame, son Yilin happily threw it away and had no interest in investigating further. In front of the Shin family, Prince Kong was very straightforward. He drank too much and in a daze he went to find his cousin to have a candlelight talk. In the end he fell asleep and occupied his cousin's room. His cousin moved to another room. Anyway, according to Miss Shin's initial statement, she climbed into the bed herself. You should have said that earlier. Otherwise I would have admitted it long ago. Why do I have to pin it on Yilin just because I picked up his jade pendant? You want an explanation, right? Fine, I will ask someone to bring it to Prince Kang's residence later. Since Prince Kong had said so, no one could do anything to him. He was a prince, the son of an emperor. He could have a romantic night. So what if she was a minister's daughter? It was already good enough that he didn't despise her for being a loose woman and was willing to accept her into his residence. Therefore, this matter could only be left unsettled. It was said that this kind of thing was the most difficult to explain. It was just empty words. You could insist on it, but the other party could also insist on denying it. In the end, on the surface, the Shin family probably suffered the biggest loss. Not only did they not get any benefits from Duke Dinggua's residence, but their reputation was also ruined. Not only were the married ladies affected by their in-laws, but the most miserable ones were the girls of marriageable age. Those who were engaged, those who were rejected, those who were in discussions, those who were lost, those who were waiting to be married. In short, they would not have a good marriage. Probably only those who were a few years old were not affected too much. Chapter 138. Sun Yilin and Jingwan suddenly broke off the engagement. To be honest, many people felt that it was inconceivable. Even if the Shin family's young lady had caused a ruckus in the Luo family, wasn't this a misunderstanding? Breaking off the engagement in such a hurry, perhaps she was regretting it to death now. However, didn't this also mean that the Luo family's third young lady was an extremely petty person? No results were out yet. Such a jealous person, which mother-in-law would like her? At the same time. Speaking of which, this Luo family's third young lady is not only jealous, but also suspected of bringing misfortune to her husband. Her previous 2 fiancés, the engagement was so short, I'm afraid no one can compare to her. To be honest, some time ago, Jingwan's limelight was too great, suppressing more than half of the capital's noble young ladies too miserably. Moreover, there were too many people who admired Sun Yilin, but in the end she who didn't have a high status took advantage of it. Could be said that new enmity added to old hatred. Now that this engagement was broken off, naturally people were rejoicing in other people's misfortune. In addition, there were various kinds of conjectures. Once these conjectures were spoken out, coupled with the echo of the crowd and a little bit of intentional people adding fuel to the fire, it naturally formed a wave of rumors and slanders. As for those who knew the real reason for breaking off the engagement for some unknown reason, they didn't come out to help Jingwan say a word. Instead, it was Yuan Qiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang who were unbearably angry, but other than retorting a few words, Jingwan is not that kind of person, there was no other way. Originally, according to Jingwan's special status, even if the second engagement was broken off, it would be just right for some people to be satisfied and should be restored to the sweet cake status. But when these rumors came out, they had to consider carefully. Hence, Sun Yilin didn't put himself in the teeth of the storm, but caused Jingwan to fall into a not small predicament. Sun Yilin was somewhat regretful. Indeed, he shouldn't have broken off the engagement so quickly. He wanted to help, but how could he help? They had nothing to do with each other anymore. He had no right to get involved. Moreover, maybe because of him things became more serious. Her mother kept saying that Jingwan was a vixen. It was hard to guarantee that others would not think so. That would be very bad for Jingwan's reputation. Therefore, she could only remain silent while being anxious. And it was under such circumstances that Sun Yilin and Qin Jingmin inadvertently met. After not seeing each other for a while, Qin Jingmin seemed to have become more mature. At this time, when they looked at each other, there was probably some indescribable complexity in their eyes. After all, they were once rivals in love. Also, there was probably some appreciation for each other. After all, they were both in the same boat. They all wanted to treat each other to a drink. Instead of going to a tavern, he got someone to buy some wine and found a quiet place. They didn't say anything. First, they each drank 3 glasses of wine. Then they were somewhat speechless. Once, when Jingwan and Qin Jingmin were engaged, Sun Yilin felt that he was tripped up by other things and missed the opportunity. God gave him a chance, but unfortunately he didn't hold on to it. When Qin Jingmin learned that Sun Yilin also liked Jingwan, he also said that he wouldn't give him a chance. As a result, he was slapped in the face. After a few more glasses of wine, Qin Jingmin finally took the lead to speak. Why did you and Cousin Wan break off the engagement? If it was said that it was like the rumors outside, he absolutely wouldn't believe it. Not to mention his cousin, his grandaunt and granduncle were both extremely wise and strict people. How could they not distinguish between right and wrong and jump to conclusions without asking whether it was right or wrong? Sun Yilin held the wine glass in silence. Because of my mother. Qin Jingmin's mouth twitched sarcastically. When he thought of his grandfather, he didn't seem to have the right to laugh at him. Although his engagement with Cousin Wan was broken off, it had nothing to do with his grandfather. As the saying goes, every family has its own difficulties. If nothing happened here, there would be a fire somewhere else. However, he might be a little better than Sun Yilin. After all, he basically had the final say in their family now, and there weren't so many restrictions. The two of them talked about this and that, and somehow they talked about Li Ruyu. Although it wasn't known to everyone, those who should know basically knew that Commandery Prince Cheng's demotion and Li Ruyu's seizure of the title were not small matters. It was just that there was no news of her marriage with Qin Jingmin until now. Are you going to drag it out like this? What? Do you feel bad? Well, she schemed against me because of you. Sun Yilin frowned. Pretend I didn't ask. There were too many things happening recently and he hadn't seen his aunt for a while. He had no feelings for Li Ruyu, but he still had some feelings for his aunt. After all, his aunt had been good to him since he was young. He didn't care whether Li Ruyu was dead or alive. He just pitied all the parents in the world. However, when he thought of his mother, Sun Yilin poured another glass of wine. However, they were all people who had suffered losses before. Even if they were disappointed, they still restrained themselves and didn't get drunk. In the Luo family, Sun Yijia was the one who appeared to be most concerned about the rumors outside. She always felt guilty towards Jingwan, but when she saw that Jingwan didn't seem to care, she restrained herself a little. Whenever something happened, Jingwan would comfort her again and again. Instead, she caused trouble for Sister Wan. Sister-in-law, it's not convenient for me to go out these days. Let my third brother take you out for a walk. Jingwan suggested. Speaking of which, her third sister-in-law was much more depressed than her. It was not a good thing to go out for a walk to relieve her depression. She didn't go out not because she was afraid of being pointed at, but because she didn't want to hear those words. It was really annoying. As for Wan Fengfei's invitation, she wasn't someone who would refuse such an invitation. It just so happened that Jingwan didn't really want to interact with her. I don't want to go out. Besides, your third brother is busy. One day won't make a difference. Jingwan looked at Sun Yijia's silent face. Sister-in-law, do you care that people are pointing at my third brother because of your face? Sun Yijia didn't care about her disfigurement, but she cared that Luo Jingbo was embarrassed because of her. Jingwan suddenly smiled. Sister-in-law, let me help you with your makeup. Sun Yijia was puzzled. Why did she want to help her with her makeup all of a sudden? However, it was said that Sister Wan was the one who did Sister Hei's first makeup. It looked very beautiful and had a different style. She was a little interested and curious about what kind of makeup Sister Wan was going to do for her. Jingwan didn't pull Sun Yijia back to the bedroom. Instead, she went to the study. To be more precise, she went to the painting room that was separated from the study for convenience. Then she asked the maid to get the makeup box. Jingwan looked at Sun Yijia's face and thought for a while. Then she picked out a few kinds of paints from the many kinds of paints she had. Anyone could tell what Jingwan was going to do. Wan, are you going to paint my face? I haven't tried it before. It's a good opportunity to practice on your face. Jingwan smiled, and there was obviously a little mischievous look on her face. She didn't look reliable at all. Don't worry, sister-in-law. The paints I picked are harmless. I promise that they won't damage your skin. Besides, even if they don't look good, you can just wash them off. Sun Yijia wasn't worried at all. Instead, Jingwan was laughing so hard that it made her hair stand on end. Then she raised her head and closed her eyes. Jingwan drew a plum blossom branch along the scar on Sun Yijia's face, from the bottom of the scar to the middle of her neck. Because it was the first time she painted on her face, it took a lot of time. However, the result was quite good. Not to mention the servants. Even Sun Yijia couldn't believe her own eyes when she looked at herself in the glass mirror. The scars were basically covered by the flower branches and they followed the lines. The treatment was very good. She didn't need to touch it with her hands. Just by looking at it, she couldn't see the scars at all. Not only that, it looked very beautiful. Jingwan held Sun Yijia's chin and looked at her whole face. Then she drew a few flying petals on the other side of her face. Perfect. Sun Yijia was overjoyed. However, the happiest people were her servants after this. In their eyes, Lin Mingya was going to wear a veil for the rest of her life. They didn't expect that she would be so beautiful one day. She was even more beautiful than before she got married. Alright, let's go back and take third elder brother out for a walk. It's his business to paint in the future. Sun Yijia didn't want to be teased by Jingwan. However, Jingwan forced her to leave. The begonia house regained its tranquility, and Jingwan began to find something to do. Granny Gong knew that Jingwan wasn't affected. However, she felt that Jingwan seemed to be planning something. However, she didn't show any signs for the time being. Therefore, she didn't know what she was going to do. Luo Jingbo was surprised when he saw Sun Yijia's makeup. However, he didn't look infatuated with her because she had become a great beauty again. It was obvious that Luo Jingbo didn't care much about her appearance. Did you do it? Sun Yijia nodded with a smile. I will do it for you in the future. Luo Jingbo said without hesitation. It was obvious that this blockhead had learned a lot after he got married. Some of his skills were slowly being perfected. You seem to be unhappy these days. Let's go out for a walk today. I don't think you will refuse. It's a good opportunity for this husband to go out and show off, and let them see how beautiful this young master's wife is. Sun Yijia was stunned. Okay. It turned out that he wanted to take her out but was worried that she would be unwilling. In fact, he was as gentle and considerate as Sister Wan. As for showing off, he had the ability to do so. There was no need for him to show off. Sun Yijia went to report to old Madame Luo. Naturally, there was no reason for her to refuse such a thing. Then she went to inform Madame Zhang. There was no problem. This was the first time the husband and wife went shopping together after they got married. They didn't have a destination. They just let the coachman drive the carriage slowly. They lifted the curtains and sat together. They looked out the window and whispered to each other. Their eyes were filled with happiness. If an outsider inadvertently saw them, they would think that they were a loving couple. When they arrived at a bustling street, the two alighted from the carriage. Luo Jingbo naturally helped her down. After that, even if there were servants following behind them, they wouldn't easily get too close. Luo Jingbo still protected Sun Yijia from time to time. Therefore, the two's posture was particularly intimate. Sun Yijia was a little embarrassed, but more than that, she felt sweet. Luo Jinghua accompanied her as they strolled leisurely. When he realized that Sun Yijia didn't know many things, he acted as an omniscient and omnipotent commentator. Sun Yijia was born in a noble family. She didn't have much contact with commoner things. In addition, she didn't have many friends. As for the clothes and jewelry that girls loved, they were often sent directly to the residence. Therefore she rarely went out shopping. She was also not interested in this activity. To put it bluntly, Sun Yijia was actually a homebody. However, her state of mind was different now. She felt that it was very interesting and she was very happy. When they passed by a small stall selling masks, she reached out and took a mask and put it on Luo Jinghua's face. There weren't many young couples who were together, but there were definitely a lot of them. At a glance, there wasn't a second couple who were as intimate as the two of them. In addition, Sun Yijia's special makeup attracted a lot of attention. Mother, look. Isn't that cousin? A mother and daughter who had just come out of the jewelry shop said to the woman beside her. The woman looked in the direction she was pointing and was silent for a moment. It's her. Oh, I've never seen her smile so happily before. Could it be that Duke Dinghua's residents mistreated her? Probably she's not used to living in luxury and prefers plain porridge and side dishes. The young girl smiled in confusion. Mother, we meet on the street. We should at least say hello. She pulled the middle-aged woman over. Cousin. Hearing the familiar voice, Sun Yijia subconsciously turned her head to look. The smile on her face subconsciously disappeared. Cousin. Previously she saw Sun Yijia's side profile. Now that she saw her face, there wasn't a hideous and terrifying scar like she had expected. Instead, there was a branch of plum blossoms that was somewhat charming and enchanting. However, because of her cold temperament, the combination of enchanting and cold temperament weakened each other, making her appear more bright and moving. Her smile couldn't help but stiffen. She thought that she had ruined her biggest asset, but she actually made up for it in another way, and it was even more perfect. The sense of superiority that she had maintained for a while was eaten away by jealousy all of a sudden. Luo Jinghua followed Sun Yijia and bowed. He was neither close nor distant. Both mother and daughter's gazes fell on him. Luo Jinghua was handsome. He might be a little casual usually, but when it was time to be serious, he would naturally be serious. His bearing and self-restraint were not bad. In addition, with the halo of the future world's teacher, his attractiveness was not inferior to Sun Yilan's at all. Not knowing what to think, a certain young girl looked at Luo Jinghua and gradually blushed. She unconsciously became a little shy. How could Sun Yijia not know how attractive Luo Jinghua was now? However, she didn't show any displeasure. She believed what he said. Since that was the case, it was useless no matter how much she coveted him. She could see him, but she couldn't touch him, let alone have him. Sun Yijia chatted with the two of them. The mother and daughter had no intention of leaving. In the past, when they met, they would not be able to say more than 3 sentences before parting ways. It was fine if this cousin of hers had some thoughts, but aunt actually also. Luo Jinghua stood quietly beside Sun Yijia. He didn't have any intention of leaving first. His eyes were slightly lowered and he scrupulously adhered to the gentleman's etiquette. He didn't look at the girl in front of him. In that girl's eyes, his gaze fell on Sun Yijia's side profile. No matter how beautiful it was still painted. She didn't believe that in private he could still stand Sun Yijia's face. The smile on her face became more and more flirtatious. Cousin-in-law, I especially like fine brushwork. Can I find a private place and ask for a painting from you? Luo Jinghua finally looked at her, but his gaze was rather strange. There are differences between men and women. With one sentence, the other party's smile froze on her face. Sun Yijia almost laughed out loud. He was really not polite and not tactful at all. He and Sister Wan were indeed brother and sister. Jinghua, you misunderstood. This girl's grandfather likes her. Luo Jinghua responded indifferently. The middle-aged woman was very angry, but she couldn't say anything. I heard that aunt is sick, but I haven't had the chance to visit her personally. How is aunt? Sun Yijia was startled. She didn't know about this. Ding General Manor didn't even send anyone to send her a letter. When she looked at Sun Yijia again, there was a different meaning in her eyes. Then she carefully looked at Luo Jinghua. Cousin, could it be that you didn't go back to see her? You were so happy just now, so I thought aunt was fine. This kind of low-level provocation was nothing to Luo Jinghua. Yijia is very anxious, so I brought her out for a walk. no matter what she was anxious about. I won't disturb aunt and cousin anymore. He reached out and gently pulled Sun Yijia to the side. Didn't you just say that you wanted to buy something back? Yes. Sun Yijia responded. The two of them talked softly as they walked further and further away. Sun Yijia's people directly gave the mother and daughter a disdainful look. This matter should be your fifth brother's consideration. Don't take it to heart. I think it's not very serious. But since I know, I'll accompany you back to take a look tomorrow. You just need to remember that you are now a member of the Luo family. Thank you, Jingbua. You and I are husband and wife. Our abilities are as one. There's no need to thank me. Although this episode had happened, it didn't affect them much. The two of them continued to walk around. Luo Jingbua accompanied her patiently at the clothes and jewelry shop, the rouge shop and other places. He wasn't impatient at all. When she asked him, he also patiently gave his opinion. Although there might be differences in taste, it didn't matter. When the two of them returned to the Luo family, they heard that 4 matchmakers had come to propose marriage to Jingwan. They thought that the situation had taken a turn for the better. However, after learning about the situation of the 4 matchmakers, the couple trembled with anger. One of them was a bastard, one was an idiot, one was a bankrupt, and one even shamelessly said that he wanted to take Jingwan as his concubine. What he said was quite good, but the meaning behind his words was that with the current reputation of the third daughter of the Luo family, it was already good enough that someone was willing to marry her. Moreover, she would bring bad luck to her husband. Even if he took her as his concubine, it would be dangerous. Madame Luo sent people to kick them out. That was really big. Who is it? Who is so vicious to want to destroy Sister Wan? Sun Yijia said hatefully. Chapter 139. For the time being, no one knew if someone was behind Jingwan's marriage. However, there was one thing that made things difficult for some people, and that was the Minister of Personnel Luo Peishan started to flip out. Relying on the various unknown things obtained from Li Hongyuan, he defeated the important officials in the Ministry of Personnel one by one. It was fine if they did not cooperate with him. He directly sent a memorial to Lu Qingdi to deal with them. 2 or 3 of the important officials in the Ministry of Personnel were removed from their positions. As for the subordinates, he directly fired a group of them. No matter who they were, no matter what their background was, he was ruthless and merciless. In short, he had reason and evidence for his actions. It was also at this time that everyone realized that they had underestimated this Lord Luo from afar. Some people wanted to rope him in even when they were in a bad mood. However, at this time Lord Luo seemed to be a little stubborn. He seemed to have the intention to be more neutral than before. Compared to Ruan Ruiz Hong, who was smooth and slick in dealing with people, he did not give face to anyone and completely offended them. However, although they hated him to the core, many people were very grateful to him. This was because he did not shy away from recommending people of talent. After careful review from many parties, he was willing to recommend those who were truly capable to Lu Qingdi, regardless of which faction they belonged to. It must be said that the emperor liked such officials the most. Lu Qingdi was no exception. Therefore, with a wave of his hand, many of the people recommended by Luo Peishan were transferred to positions more suitable for them. Although the proportion of direct promotion was not very high, they could naturally perform better in their areas of expertise. This obviously meant that they would have better opportunities. However, was Luo Peishan really not selfish at all? How was that possible? In fact, although the positions of the transferred people did not seem to be high, all of them were below level 4, and they were not limited to the capital, but the prefectures and manors of the Qi Yuan dynasty. However, in fact, half of these people were arranged by Li Hongyuan. Although the positions assigned to them were not high, they were very important. As long as they were given 3 to 5 years, they would be further promoted and could even choke the throats of the various regions. In addition, after careful investigation, none of the toads who went to the Luo family to propose marriage were allowed to have a place for their close relatives. Some of them had problems and were directly stepped down by Luo Peishan without mercy. All 4 families had a share. No one was left out. In fact, few people in the officialdom were stupid. After sorting out the relationships among them, they would find some clues. Oh, very good. Lord Luo cared about his family and loved his granddaughter. He would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. The 4 families regretted it very much. Even their close relatives and friends resented it. Especially Naxihuai, who was not talented enough, had been wasting his time in his original position. When he saw the opportunity, he was full of enthusiasm and was ready to do something big after being transferred or promoted. However, after waiting for a long time, he did not even have his name on the list submitted by Luo Shangshu to the emperor. The reason was that a family member had humiliated his granddaughter. You couldn't even reason with him about this kind of thing. Because Luo Peishan's move was too ruthless and the effect was too obvious, some people began to be tempted again. However, they did not act immediately. Because in this big change of officials, almost no one close to the Luo family was involved, not even a son or son-in-law. It was unknown whether it was because he wanted to avoid relatives, or whether he thought that his son or son-in-law did not have the ability or did not need to be changed for the time being. At this time they had to consider carefully. If they really wanted to use marriage to climb up the Luo family, then they had to show enough sincerity. And the children and grandchildren used for marriage must also be good enough. If they dared to come up with a marriage proposal, then they would really hate you to death and might even secretly trample you to death. They realized that the status of the Luo family's grandchildren might not be measured by their father's generation. As long as Luo Peishan stayed in his current position, even if it was only for a few years, as long as he supported them, they would be greatly improved. Especially when there was a rumor that Luo Peishan valued his grandchildren and doted on the third young lady the most. The importance of the third generation of the Luo family immediately rose by a lot. Their value was compared to that of Luo Peishan's children. As long as they were 10 years old and had no marriage contract, each and every one of them became a delicious cake. At the beginning of Luo Peishan's promotion, the awkward situation of being in an awkward position, being pushed aside by all parties and faintly being a mere figurehead, was smashed to pieces. At the beginning there were few visitors, but in a short period of time, there was an endless stream of visitors. Every day there were people coming to greet and send off. As the daughter-in-law, the fourth sister-in-law could not accept any of them. At this time, Madame Luo also pulled Sun Yijia, her granddaughter-in-law, out. Now that these people were trying to curry favor and flatter the Luo family, it was not difficult for Sun Yijia to entertain them. The other young ladies of similar age were also pulled out one by one. However, outside of the restricted Luo Jingying, Jingwan still did not show up. The women were busy, but the men and young masters were not idle either. Every day there were people trying to curry favor with them. However, even so, no one was stupid enough to directly ask a matchmaker to propose marriage. In fact, regarding the marriage of the grandchildren, other than Jingwan's, Madame Luo did not want to interfere with any of them. Jingwan seemed to be the one with the most difficult marriage, but in fact she had already been settled. This was because Madame Luo was always indifferent about the marriage of the grandchildren. Whenever it was mentioned, she would directly throw it to their respective parents. He did not care. Third young lady? Yu Lao probably hasn't match-made her yet. This meant that she was not going to mention Jingwan's marriage for the time being. No matter who wanted to marry Jingwan, Madame Luo's attitude was always like this. Everyone sighed silently in their hearts. It seemed that this most beloved young lady of the Luo family could forget about it. As for Jingwan's bad reputation, many people were still aware of the tricks behind it. Although Luo Jingying was the legitimate daughter of Lord Luo's concubine-born son, he had been able to teach the son of a concubine-born son. In addition, he valued the granddaughters of his concubine-born son so much, so he probably treated his granddaughter well. Moreover, many of them knew that Luo Jingying was good-looking, talented and perhaps a little vain, but that was not a big problem. Therefore, this fourth young lady of the Luo family, who was only a day younger than Jingwan, was also on the minds of many people. After all, if she was slightly older, she would be able to marry into the family in at most 1 or 2 years. If she dragged on for a few more years, who knew what Luo Peishan would do? However, after several contacts with Madame Lu, basically no one mentioned her anymore. She was a person with a loftier heart than the sky. It had to be said that the Lu matriarch was not feeling well either. In fact, given the current situation, it would have been a good choice for Luo Jingying to marry into a better family. The Lu matriarch's heart was delusional, but she still had reason and lived in reality. However, the prerequisite was that her daughter was still a virgin. Unfortunately. As such, she could only remain aloof until the end. She would be ridiculed openly and covertly, saying things like, "Be careful that your heart is higher than the sky but your life is thinner than paper." She could only listen and endure, waiting to see if Prince Rui would make a move. Regarding this matter, Luo Rongping had actually looked for Li Hongming and hinted that he already knew that Prince Rui had taken his daughter's virginity. He hoped that he could come up with a plan. However, Li Hongming was a person who would not act until he saw the hair. In any case, Luo Jingying was already his person. Luo Rongping, this chess piece, could not escape even if he wanted to. For the time being, he sat firmly on the fishing platform. If Luo Rongping did not show some sincerity, he would make a move. To put it bluntly, he was forcing Luo Rongping to hand over a proof of his allegiance. Because Li Hongming worked in the Ministry of Appointments, he was the one who had the deepest understanding of Luo Peishan's actions among his brothers. He had spent so much time in the Ministry of Appointments, but he was still far from Luo Peishan's achievements in such a short period of time. He did not know how Luo Peishan did it, but one thing was for sure. He was very frustrated. At the same time, he wanted to win over Luo Peishan even more. However, the proof of his allegiance that Li Hongming wanted soon appeared. After all, Luo Peishan's sudden rise made the calm empress somewhat unable to sit still. It was completely out of her control. At this time, she hated her sister-in-law even more. She was unable to accomplish anything but was good at spoiling things. She had offended the Luo family so much. Fortunately, Sun Yijia was not implicated in the Luo family's anger. Instead, she summoned Prince Kong to properly teach her a lesson. At this time, Prince Kong naturally understood the seriousness of the matter. He calmed down the anger in his heart and did his best to put down his pride. He looked for Sun Yilin and tried to win over Luo Jingbua. He also knew that Luo Peishan's third son had always been loyal to him. This way he could give him some benefits. At the same time, the Empress summoned Sun Yijia to the palace on the pretext that she had not seen Sun Yijia for a long time. Sun Yijia did not enter the palace to see the Empress. After her disfigurement, the Empress had actually summoned her once. When she saw her current makeup, she was surprised and pleased. In fact, Sun Yijia knew very well why the Empress wanted to see her. Therefore, she only said that the makeup was done by Luo Jingbua and did not say anything else. The Empress praised Luo Jingbua and then changed the topic to Jingwan. When Sun Yijia was about to leave, the Empress said that she wanted to see Jingwan. Sun Yijia was not stupid. She faintly felt that the Empress's aunt seemed to want Prince Kong to marry Jingwan. When she left the palace, she could not help but clench her fists. Her eyes were full of gloominess. It was easy to refuse other people, but was it easy to refuse the Empress? She now hoped that Prince Rui and the others could delay the Empress's idea. Sun Yijia did not know that the Empress's idea was just to bring up the past. After returning to the Luo family, Sun Yijia immediately went to find old Madame Luo. She repeated to old Madame Luo what the Empress said to her and told her about her guess. "You're a good child. Life well with Jingbua. Don't think too much about other things." Old Madame Luo was giving Sun Yijia real reassurance. Sun Yijia only felt bitterness in her heart. "Thank you, grandmother." Old Madame Luo smiled and did not say anything about it. "Since the Empress wants to see Wan Wan, you can bring her to the palace tomorrow. Do what you need to do. We will handle the rest." Jingwan appeared to be quite indifferent about going to the palace to see the Empress. Sun Yijia really admired her attitude. Other than her, she had not seen it in anyone else of the same age. After a while, however, she asked, "Sister Wan, what have you been doing recently? Why do I feel that you have been so mysterious these days?" "I didn't do anything." Jingwan smiled innocently. It would be strange if Sun Yijia believed her. When the Empress saw Jingwan, she did not say anything. She just amiably expressed her love for Jingwan. She was just short of pulling Jingwan and calling her daughter-in-law. Sun Yijia lowered her eyes and listened attentively. Once again, she admired Jingwan for being able to deal with the Empress with a sweet smile at this time. She did not make any mistakes. She was even the butt of gossip in the tribe. At this moment, she suddenly realized that it was a happy and lucky thing to have Sister Wan's poisonous mouth. It turned out that if Sister Wan really wanted to deal with someone, she could also do a very good job. The Empress did not keep Jingwan for too long. Before she left, she rewarded Jingwan with a lot of good things. Of course, as her niece, Sun Yijia did not leave her behind. Jingwan accepted it very calmly and did not even refuse. As soon as she left Kunyi Palace, she immediately met people from Jade Essence Palace. Noble Consort Su invited her. Sun Yijia saw Jingwan's natural expression and thought of what Madame Luo said yesterday. Everything was probably within her expectations. Although noble consort Su did not have a son to marry, her attitude towards Jingwan was very good. She treated Jingwan as if she was the younger generation of her maternal family. She was especially intimate and did not leave Sun Yijia behind. Sun Yijia had known for a long time that noble consort Su was very good at dealing with people. Today was another confirmation. However, other than these, noble consort Su also talked to Jingwan about skincare. She praised Jingwan's tender skin and did not hide her envy. She also mentioned the secret skincare recipe and wondered when she would be able to get it. On this point, noble consort Su was very straightforward and did not beat around the bush. Rouge Pavilion has already produced the finished product. It should be sent to the palace soon, Jingwan said truthfully. Are you serious? That's really great. Noble consort Su could be said to be harmless to the extreme. Ordinary girls would easily have a good impression of her. Unfortunately, Jingwan was never an ordinary girl. Noble consort Su also gave her a reward. Moreover, it was not too much and not too little. It was probably just a little better than the empress's. The two sisters-in-law looked at each other. If someone said that noble consort Su did not know what the empress had given her, they would not believe it even if they were beaten to death. However, the reward for the two of them was personally brought by the empress's aunt. After receiving it, it was tightly placed in a box. Noble consort Su clearly knew what it was in the blink of an eye. This harem was really not a good place. Any small matter was full of competition, and there was also the ubiquitous surveillance. Originally, they thought that they should be able to leave the palace, but in the end, they were greeted by people from Sweet Dew Palace. Jingwan expressed her surprise. Noble consort Qin had always been very low-key. Why would she get involved today? However, since she was invited, she would just go. When noble consort Su heard that the two of them went to Sweet Dew Palace, she did not say anything. She was still thinking about Jingwan's words and actions. She's really not a simple girl. Originally, to be able to make noble consort Su, who was the most favored in the harem, express envy, she should at least be a little smug. However, from the beginning to the end she was very calm. Noble consort Qin did not appear to be so intimate. However, in Jingwan's view, she was the easiest to get along with among the three of them. There was a faint sense of peace. However, in this harem, to be able to occupy a place in the harem without a son and to have an unshakable position, naturally she was not harmless. However, Jingwan felt that noble consort Qin's eyes did not seem to be trying to win her over. It was more like she was sizing her up with some deep meaning. After that, she seemed to feel that it was not bad. Felt a little strange. Jingwan could not figure out the reason for noble consort Qin's reaction at all. However, since she could not figure it out, she did not think about it. The reward that noble consort Qin gave in the end was only slightly inferior to the empress's. Did this mean that the Kunyi Palace was like a sieve full of loopholes? No, it could not be. The empress was not that stupid. Either she deliberately revealed it or she deliberately kept the spies in the other harem. Jingwan felt that the latter was more likely. After all, as long as she was aware of other people's spies, it did not matter if they revealed some insignificant things. At the critical moment they might play an unexpected role. However, after the two of them left, noble consort Qin murmured something that no one heard: good taste. When the palace servants led them out of the palace, Jingwan and the rest met someone. Sun Yijia was stunned and did not know how to react for a moment. However, Jingwan did not avoid it and squatted down. Sun Yilin returned the greeting from afar and then fixed his gaze on Jingwan. He did not have any intention to go forward. He only heard that she was summoned into the palace by his aunt. Outside the palace he could not see her at all. However, he wanted to know if she was well, if she was disturbed by the recent rumors. Therefore he found an excuse to come out. And now she seemed to be doing well, so he was relieved. Ignoring the waves of pain in his heart, Sun Yilin turned and left. Sun Yijia saw her closest brother like this and was especially distressed. However, there were some things that could not be helped. She hoped that fifth brother would be able to walk out of this emotional wound as soon as possible. She naturally did not know that Sun Yilin had already told their mother that he would never marry for life. Just as Sun Yilin left, Jin Qinhuang Li Hongyuan was welcomed. Li Hongyuan's gaze retracted from Sun Yilin's departing figure and looked at Jingwan and the rest. Or rather, he looked at Jingwan. His gaze was heavy and somewhat sinister. Greetings to Wang Ye. After several breaths, they heard the two words, dispense with the formalities. Sun Yijia's heartbeat was somewhat fast. Because of the gaze that Li Hongyuan looked at Sun Yilin, she felt that her brother was being stared at by a wild beast. However, what reason did Jin Qinhuang have to stare at her brother? Could it be that Jin Qinhuang really took a fancy to her brother? It shouldn't be, right? But if that was the case, that gaze was a bit too fierce. Other than that, she could not think of any other reason. Jingwan and the rest brushed past Li Hongyuan. Chapter 140. Due to Luo Peishan's special protection, the rumors about Jingwan had temporarily subsided. However, it was only temporary. It was merely the calm before the storm. Unless Jingwan's marriage could be resolved perfectly and all parties had nothing to say, the crisis attached to Jingwan would not be resolved. At the same time, Luo Rongping was finally valued by Prince Kong. For Luo Rongping, it was not too late. The so-called not too late meant that he had already taken refuge with Prince Rui. No matter how much he valued him now, it would not be of much use. The so-called not too late meant that he had taken refuge with Prince Rui in order to become a spy in Prince Kang's faction. Even if he was a spy, he would not be of much use if he was not in an important position and could not reach the core. If he wanted to prove his loyalty, the opportunity would come. The first time he was summoned by Prince Kong, he received unprecedented treatment. It really made Luo Rongping feel fear and trepidation. Fortunately, he was not muddle-headed and knew that there was no way he could get rid of Prince Rui now. Prince Kong asked Sun Yilin to make an appointment with Luo Jingbua. Sun Yilin agreed, and so did Luo Jingbua. Originally, when Sun Yilin also made an appointment with Luo Jingbua, he told him that no matter what Prince Kong said, there was only one purpose: to make a joke. In short, he could not agree to anything and he could not be the subject of ridicule. To be honest, when he heard Sun Yilin's words, Luo Jingbua was actually quite surprised. Even if he married Yijia, the nature of his marriage with Yijia was not that strong due to the standpoint of Duke Dinggua's mansion. Sun Yilin did not explain much. It was true that he was a member of Ding General Manor, but he had always avoided Sun Yibin in the past. Even if he was greatly favored by the emperor, he had never participated in political affairs. Later, he completely fell out with Sun Yibin and entered the imperial court as an official. He still hardly participated in factional disputes. There were many things that he did not understand and did not want to understand. However, after Luo Jingbua met with Prince Kong, Sun Yilin realized that his worries were all unnecessary. It was true that his brother-in-law was candid and casual, but he was not without scheming and did not understand the ways of the world. Anyway, Sun Yilin was just a guest. After listening for a while, he could not help but sigh. He was indeed taught by Luo Shangshu. It seemed that Prince Kong was the one who dominated the conversation, but in fact, it was Luo Jingbua who led the other party by the nose, but Li Hongyi was not aware of it. Luo Jingbua's straightforwardness depended on who he was dealing with. In fact, Luo Jingbua did it more obviously. If it was another person, how could he not find the clue? Therefore, Prince Kang's IQ was a shortcoming. Perhaps his IQ was at the level of ordinary people, but the people he came into contact with were all smart, which made him appear a little stupid. When Sun Yilin was about to leave, he did not expect that Prince Kong would ask someone to bring the courtesan of the brothel to accompany him. Naturally, his face was a little dark. However, although Li Hongyi was his cousin, he did not allow him to interfere. However, the situation that followed was really unexpected to him. Because when the beautiful courtesan approached, she wanted to snuggle into Luo Jingbua's arms. Unexpectedly, Luo Jingbua sneezed several times. "What's the smell on your body? Why is it so pungent?" The courtesan looked confused and then she was very helpless. Tears gathered in her eyes. Prince Kang's face was dark. He waved his hand to let the courtesan get out. "This commoner has been rude. Prince, please forgive me." He could not help rubbing his nose. "It has nothing to do with you." In this way, in the end, it seemed that they talked a lot, but there was no substantive content at all. And the courtesan that Prince Kong was going to send was returned before she could get close. Luo Jingbua and Sun Yilin left hand in hand. Sun Yilin saw that Luo Jingbua was refreshed and did not feel bad at all. His eyes became more and more strange. "Brother-in-law, you did it on purpose, didn't you?" Luo Jingbua smiled at Sun Yilin, the kind that was particularly harmless. "Brother-in-law, what do you mean?" Well, there was no need to ask. Sun Yilin had already determined that he did it on purpose. He pretended so well that even he was deceived. You can't judge a book by its cover. Sun Yilin once again deeply understood the meaning of this word. Luo Jinghua still pretended to be stupid and smiled. Sun Yilin did not ask more. It was good that his brother-in-law had such a heart. He was now more attractive than him. After returning to the Luo family, Luo Jinghua went directly to see his baby sister. Although he knew that she did not take the things outside to heart, he could not help but worry about her sometimes. However, it seemed that she was fiddling with something. After asking, he did not get any answer. That day, after Luo Peishan went to the yamen, Jingwan brought something to him. Jingwan often went in and out of the outer study, so everyone had become accustomed to it. "Little girl, are you looking for grandfather for something?" Luo Peishan looked at the thing in Jingwan's hand. Jingwan did not say anything. She just handed the thing to Luo Peishan. Luo Peishan first fiddled with the long cylindrical thing. He was somewhat confused, so his eyes fell on the two pieces of paper. One of them was an unusually fine drawing. "This thing clairvoyance?" Jingwan turned around the desk, walked to Luo Peishan's side and told him how to use it. In Luo Peishan's eyes, the farthest leaves outside the door of the study suddenly seemed to be in front of him. Luo Peishan was amazed. Clairvoyance, clairvoyance. Although the name sounded exaggerated, it could see very far. Jingwan did not disturb Luo Peishan and let him fiddle with it. The lens in the telescope was made of the most transparent white crystal. The effect was still inferior to glass. However, Jingwan was very satisfied with the final result. Luo Peishan finally saw enough. However, after all, he had so much experience and knowledge. Besides feeling that it was very rare, he could not find any other use for it. "Wan, although this thing is exquisite, but how about marching to war? If the enemy does not see it, I will see it." Luo Peishan's eyes suddenly lit up. "It's really wonderful." Although Luo Peishan had not been on the battlefield, he could imagine the situation. How could this be a cheap toy? It was clearly a treasure with great use. Luo Peishan looked at the blueprint again. He could more or less understand it. As for the specifics, he directly handed it to the Ministry of Works Military Weapons Bureau. There was a finished product and the blueprint was very detailed. If they still could not understand it, the entire Bureau of Military Weapons could go home and hug their children. Luo Peishan looked at it again and again. Finally, he put down the blueprint and picked up another piece of paper. It was also a blueprint. And it was a crossbow. It was different from the commonly used crossbows, but it was an improved continuous shooting crossbow. Because there was no finished product, Luo Peishan could not see whether this crossbow was good or bad. However, based on the fact that it could shoot continuously, once it was successfully forged, it would definitely be more powerful than the current crossbow. Luo Peishan solemnly put away the things properly. "Third girl, what do you want to ask for by bringing this thing here?" It was very obvious that this was to be presented to the emperor. It was an unusual time. Luo Peishan knew that she should have her own plans. "Grandfather, do you think that it is possible to ask for the position of Jin Qinhuang's Di-Fei?" Luo Peishan looked at Jingwan's expression change again. There was an indescribable light in his eyes, and he spoke in an extremely calm or indifferent tone. "Third girl, do you know what you are saying?" Jingwan pursed her lips. "Grandfather, I am very clear about what I am saying. People like Jin Qinhuang, others can't wait to avoid him. For me to approach him now, it is indeed very unwise. It may even make people think that I am stupid. But in the current situation, Jin Qinhuang is the best candidate. If I become his fiancé, the dilemma will be easily solved." Jingwan was very clear. Don't look at how awe-inspiring her grandfather was now. He was still within the tolerance range of some people, thinking that there was still a possibility that he could be used. If he continued to be unyielding, then no one would tolerate him to continue sitting in his current position. The position of Minister of the Ministry of Personnel was really too important. No one could tolerate him alone. Moreover, at the beginning of his tenure, the current situation was very unusual. This position itself was unstable. If other people wanted to pull him down, third Uncle Luo Rongping himself would not be content. Therefore, they could always find some reason to attack Luo Peishan, and then create some out of nothing. Luo Peishan's final outcome could be imagined. Therefore, it was not only Jingwan who was in danger, but also Luo Peishan and the entire Luo family. Jin Qinhuang had no power or influence, but he was someone that no one could provoke. He seemed to be noble Consort Su's adopted son, but everyone knew that he did not touch any side. Indeed, the current situation has been broken. Then girl, have you thought about the future? Moreover, Jin Qinhuang himself is not someone that is easy to provoke. Using him to break the situation may bring more trouble to the Luo family. After all, if it were other people they could still be somewhat apprehensive, but Jin Qinhuang does not have any misgivings. Even if he brazenly makes a move, you can't do anything to him. Therefore, I'm only asking for a status, that's all. Wan Fengfei was a pervert, she did not want to compete with her. Besides, Jin Qinhuang's heart probably still had his true love, Bai Yuguang. She had no interest in getting involved. If she had to move her position at that time, as long as the Luo family was stabilized, she could leave. Even if it was a special way to let her live with another person's identity, it was not impossible. It was just that the wife of the first wife was the bottom line. She could not even give up this persistence. When Jingwan slightly lowered her eyes, Luo Peishan looked at her with a strange expression. Only a name? Good grandson, you also have to see if Jin Qinhuang agrees or not. He has calculated so much for so long, now you take the initiative to send yourself to his mouth. Wouldn't he swallow you whole in one bite? However, she could not let that living king of hell off so easily. She was angered to the point of falling ill. She had to give him something in return. Girl, you should know that the most important thing is the future. In the future, does grandfather also think that when any other prince ascends the throne, Jin Qinhuang will definitely die? Could it be that this girl has other views? Although there are only a few times that I have come into contact with Jin Qinhuang, and the time is short, but one thing is certain, he is not a stupid person. How could he not know his current situation? But looking at him, he still goes his own way and does not know how to restrain himself. Could it be that he does not care about his own life at all? There is no reason for him to have the will to die. So, he must have means to protect himself. I never thought that when the other princes ascended the throne, it would be the day of his death. Luo Peishan's eyes flashed. This granddaughter of his, although she did not know the truth, but her judgment was very accurate. Even so, Jin Qinhuang is someone who does not act according to common sense. These two things are only used for His Majesty. After all, my status is not enough to be a Qinhuang Fei. Only with His Majesty's permission can we talk about other things. If Jin Qinhuang does not agree, I will not force it. This status was indeed the biggest obstacle. Otherwise Jin Qinhuang would have already directly asked for marriage. However, for the emperor this was not a matter at all. As long as he nodded, if he wanted to promote a person's status, it would be a matter of a sentence. Good grandson, if this matter was successful, it would solve Jin Qinhuang's biggest problem. Luo Peishan could not help but think that the living king of hell was so insolent. The biggest problem did not require him to use the most extreme method to solve it, but it was solved by his future wife. He did not know what kind of expression he would have. Girl, you have to think clearly. Jin Qinhuang's reputation. Rumors are often exaggerated. How much of it is true is still unknown. Moreover, I do not ask for anything practical. Whether he is a playboy or not, it has nothing to do with me. As for his malicious and ruthless temperament, no matter what, he would not go so far as to do anything to his wife. Nowadays people say that I am a jinx to my husband. With our jinx, who knows, when we meet each other it will become mutual. Jingwan smiled. Luo Peishan now knew that Jingwan did not care about marriage. This step should have been carefully considered. Since that is the case, I will present this to His Majesty tomorrow and see what His Majesty thinks. Jingwan nodded. She thought again. Actually, it is not impossible as long as there is a marriage contract. In any case, granddaughter will only be married after reaching marriageable age. There is still a long time. With the marriage contract as a buffer, grandfather should be able to completely stand firm in the Ministry of Personnel. Some matters can also be handled well. At that time, even if other people want to pull you down, it will not be so easy. At that time, if Jin Qinhuang is not happy, he can also jinx me once. Luo Peishan looked at Jingwan and did not know what to say. In the end, she did this for him, for the Luo family. However, perhaps he should tell Jin Qinhuang her words to let him feel suffocated. However, this way Jin Qinhuang would be spared from exposing himself now and doing things like forcing the abdication of the throne. It must be known that even if he wanted to seize the throne, now was indeed not a good time. This was simply an invisible solution to the Qi Yuan's disaster. The third girl had accumulated so much good fortune, if the heavens did not treat her better, they would really be blind. After that, Luo Peishan's interest was piqued. He wanted to know how Jingwan thought of all this. I don't know how I thought of it. I used to make it for fun in Qianfu, but at that time, it was not so detailed and I did not think of further uses. This lie was very familiar the first time, but the second time when she was in Qianfu, she did indeed tinker with a lot of things that others thought were strange, so there was nothing strange about it. Moreover, at that time she really used the hand crossbow to hunt. It did not seem strange that she wanted to improve it. The reason why she knew about this was because in her previous life someone gave her father a crossbow. In a moment of curiosity she took it and played with it for a while. She also specially looked up the manufacturing method. However, too much time had passed and she only vaguely remembered some of it. Thus, she spent these few days to study it properly before she could basically restore the blueprint. However, she estimated that there were still some areas that needed to be improved. She believed that those people in the Bureau of Military Weapons would succeed in the end. As Jingwan sent Granny Gong to the Rouge Pavilion, she naturally did not follow her to the front study. As Jingwan did not tell her about what she did before, she did not know her intentions. Thus, the important conversation between the grandmother and granddaughter in the study was not immediately heard by Li Hongyuan. The next day there was no morning court session. Luo Peishan went directly to the imperial study to meet Lu Qingdi. Naturally, there were several other ministers in the imperial study at this time. After dealing with the political affairs, Luo Peishan stayed until the end and presented the item. Because he had written a separate report, there was no need to explain much. Lu Qingdi was the emperor, so he still had foresight. When he saw the item presented by Luo Peishan, he could not help but feel moved. This was indeed a good item. Come, summon the Minister of Works and the Commander of the Left. Taking advantage of this moment, he asked, "This item is very good. Who made it? Who is so clever?" "Your Majesty, it is my third granddaughter." Lu Qingdi's eyes moved. Jingwan had left a deep impression on him. "Very good. Last time that girl helped me find a great talent for Qi Yuan. I have not rewarded her yet. This time I will reward her as well. What do you want? Tell me. Can my granddaughter be your Majesty's daughter-in-law?" Luo Peishan did not hesitate and said bluntly. Lu Qingdi's eyebrows moved. "Oh, my dear minister, are you interested in my 11th prince?" Luo Peishan was also helpless. He was so sincere. Why couldn't he speak properly? Why did he have to pretend not to understand? What was the point? The 11th prince is still young. He was not even 14 yet. He was a real child. Even if his granddaughter married him in 2 years, she would still be the one to raise the child. Damn it, he wanted to find a son-in-law who could love, care for, and protect his granddaughter. He did not want his granddaughter to be married off to be an old mother. "Your Majesty, this official does not ask for that girl to live a life of luxury. I only wish for her to live a peaceful and happy life. But now she is a fish on the chopping block." This official feels distressed. Needless to say, this official's wife is even more so. If it was not because I have no other choice, this official would not dare to think about the position of a Qin Fei. Lu Qingdi understood that Luo Peishan was serious. Lao Lu's temper and his reputation. Although Lu Qingdi did not necessarily know everything that happened in the capital, he was still aware of the Luo family's current situation. In fact, he was also very satisfied with Luo Peishan. Luo Peishan laughed in spite of himself. This official's family's girl is rumored to be a jinx to her husband. As for the rest, if Jin Qinhuang is not willing, this official will not force it. Not willing? Was he mad with joy? Let Chen think about it. The Minister of Works and the Governor of the Left quickly arrived at the imperial study. The finished product of the clairvoyance was directly given to Qin Tianming. Among the current generals, he had the most experience in leading troops into battle. He could be considered an ever-victorious general. He had the most say in military matters. After learning how to use it, he tested it a little. Immediately, his eyes shone with golden light. Needless to say, just by looking at his expression, the clairvoyance's effect was not small. The Minister of Works, who received the blueprint, was also indescribably excited. "Official Zhong, what do you think of this blueprint?" "Your Majesty, this is great." Previously, the Bureau of Military Weapons had always wanted to modify the crossbow, but there was not much progress. Looking at this blueprint, there is at least an 80% chance of success. More importantly, it can shoot 5 times in a row. This greatly increases the speed. Perhaps it can completely replace the use of the bow in cavalry. The cavalry's lethality will at least double. Good. Lu Qingdi could not help but slap the table. He was not an emperor who had the ambition to expand his territory, but as an emperor he naturally wanted his country to have a strong army. When the left governor heard this, he could not help but walk up to the Minister of Works. His heartbeat quickened. This is good stuff. Everyone knew that a crossbow was much more powerful than a bow. It also had a longer range. However, it took longer to load and did not have an advantage on the battlefield. However, if it could shoot continuously, it would make up for this shortcoming. Lu Qingdi became even more excited because of their reactions. It took him a long time to calm down. The Minister of Works couldn't wait to go back and study the blueprint with the people of the Bureau of Military Weapons. The left commander-in-chief also wanted to experience the function of the clairvoyance more directly, so they all asked to leave. Lu Qingdi naturally agreed, but these two things were of great importance and couldn't be leaked. However, the left governor's plan did not work. The clairvoyance was confiscated by Lu Qingdi. The left governor was depressed. Thus, he shamelessly followed the Minister of Works to the Bureau of Military Weapons. Then, other than Lu Qingdi's personal servant, only the two of them were in the imperial study. Official Luo, you may leave first. This official will retire. Lu Qingdi temporarily fell into silence. The marriage of his evil spawn son was really a headache. Originally, he had already planned to smash the broken jar and see if there was fate in the future. It was really unexpected that Luo Peishan wanted that evil spawn to be his grandson-in-law. However, after thinking about it carefully, it seemed to be reasonable. The Luo family's third miss was indeed a good person. Whether it was character or bearing, it was enough to support the status of a Qinhuang Fei. Summon Jin Qinhuang to the palace for an audience. When Li Hongyuan heard Lu Qingdi summon him, he was puzzled. He did not seem to have done anything in the past 2 days. There was an imperial court every 3 days. It would be good if he could go once in 10 times. He did not have any errands at hand. Thus, he would occasionally enter the palace to pay his respects to Gui Fei Su and make friends with Lu Qingdi. They just met the day before yesterday, so his old man definitely did not suddenly miss his son. No matter how much he thought about it, he would know when he saw Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi did not beat around the bush. Official Luo wants you to be his grandson-in-law. What do you think? Li Hongyuan's heart beat wildly, but his expression did not change at all. What's the reason? The Luo family is now besieged on all sides. You are the best person to help them stabilize the situation. With the engagement between the Luo family's third miss and this evil spawn, he did not need to do anything else. How simple it was. Half of the reason why the Luo family was in this situation was because of Lu Qingdi. I'm asking for the reason why father agreed. Luo Aiqing presented 2 things to me. Thus I sold you out. Since father has agreed, why do you still ask me? I'm afraid that you will make trouble. In that case, it's settled. Get out. Li Hongyuan got out without hesitation. However, no one knew how excited he was now. However, he had worked so hard for so long, but his wife easily solved it. He really felt a little frustrated. However, his wife was so powerful that he had to solve Wan Fengfei as soon as possible. Should he kill her directly? Or cripple her? Or destroy her? The next day, Great Elder Princess's mansion sent someone to say that there seemed to be a little problem with the 18 scholar and asked Jingwan to have a look. Jingwan stayed in Great Elder Princess's mansion for more than half a day. Then there was a rumor that Great Elder Princess liked Jingwan very much and wanted to adopt her as her daughter. Chapter 141. On the day of Great Elder Princess's birthday, she wanted to adopt Jingwan as her adopted daughter, but she had to give up in the end because of scruples. Now she suddenly mentioned it. If it were not for Lu Qingdi's instruction, she would not have done such a thing. Her purpose was naturally to improve Jingwan's status. If she didn't have a good father or mother, she would give her a noble adoptive mother. To a certain extent, this kind of relationship was even more intimate than marriage. After exchanging the birth characters of Jingwan, Great Elder Princess, and Prince Consort Jiang, the result was naturally very compatible. The two families attached great importance to this meeting and chose an auspicious day. Then Great Elder Princess also sent out invitations and invited guests. It was as grand as her birthday. On the day of the meeting, the Luo family went to Great Elder Princess's mansion after getting ready. At an auspicious time, they lit incense and candles and prayed to heaven and earth. Then Jingwan knelt down and kowtowed to Great Elder Princess and Prince Consort Jiang, who were in the first place, and served tea. Not to mention great elder princess. Even Prince Consort Jiang was very happy. This was his adopted daughter who had many treasures in her hands. In the future, except for the old fox Luo Peishan, he would be the most convenient one. Therefore, the couple both prepared a big red envelope for Jingwan. Of course, everyone knew that this red envelope was actually a small thing. It just needed a process. Great Elder Princess's gift couldn't be just this. The more Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan, the more she liked her. It should be noted that when her royal brother asked her to adopt a daughter, Jingwan agreed happily without asking anything. It was not so easy to try it on someone else. Jingwan followed Great Elder Princess to take a bath, change clothes and dress up well. Great Elder Princess specially prepared the clothes for her. Everything from head to toe was carefully selected. Except for some things that were obviously taboo, Jingwan's whole dressing was according to Wengzhu's style. The material used to cut the clothes was moonlight silk. When she wore it, it complemented her smooth and delicate skin, showing off her straight, flexible and graceful figure. It was as if the moonlight was pouring down on her body. In addition, every accessory on her body was exquisite, expensive and exceptionally gorgeous. Coupled with that calm, confident and dignified aura. Good. Great Elder Princess praised her several times. Originally, she was a little worried that Jingwan would not be able to hold herself back, so she prepared another set of clothes. However, when she saw such a beautiful and charming Jingwan, another set of clothes was completely unnecessary. Her adopted daughter should be so noble, so this set of clothes couldn't be more suitable. Even if those princesses and infanta were to wear it, they would definitely be inferior. Great Elder Princess even felt that this was what her daughter should be like. At this time, she realized that she might have been dissatisfied with her daughter before, let alone those daughters-in-law who were not presentable. Jingwan happened to meet some of her expectations for the younger generation. She held Madame Luo's hand and said, "Madame Luo, you are really good at teaching people." Madame Luo was also smiling from ear to ear. It was not the first time that she had heard such words, but when it came from Great Elder Princess, it was naturally very important. It's Wanwan herself. She herself, Great Elder Princess, took Jingwan out to meet the guests. At the moment when the female guests saw her, few of them were not moved. They were all very familiar with Jingwan, and the ones who had the biggest reaction were naturally those princesses and infanta. They had never realized so clearly that there was a woman in the world who was obviously far inferior to them but looked more graceful than them. In their hearts, it was as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been knocked over. It was complicated and hard to describe, and at the same time something called jealousy was born. That's right, as Qi Yuan's most respected group of young ladies, there would be a day when they would be jealous of others. How inconceivable, but this was the truth, a truth that they were unwilling to admit. They either looked away indifferently or disdainfully. Wan Fengfei's eyes fell on Jingwan for a long time and did not look away. Her eyes looked peaceful, but she was the only one who knew what was on her mind. Sitting with her was still the infanta who had the best relationship with her. She threw the almonds in her hand back to the fruit plate and said, "A sparrow is a sparrow. No matter how much she looks like a phoenix, it can't change the fact that she is a sparrow." Wan Fengfei did not say anything, and even her expression did not change, but the people around her did not notice her abnormality. Great Elder Princess personally introduced her to a group of noble ladies, from the relatives of the royal family to the wives of the first or second class. Great Elder Princess used her words and deeds to tell everyone that she cared and loved Jingwan. She even said that this girl was like her biological daughter. Although Great Elder Princess had no power or influence, she was valued by Lu Qingdi and could even influence Lu Qingdi sometimes. Her status was extremely noble. It could be said that she suddenly raised Jingwan's status to the extreme, and no one dared to look down upon her. However, more people were pondering the meaning behind it. They also knew Great Elder Princess's position. She had never had much contact with the court officials, but now she suddenly made such a move. Jingwan's status had been raised because Luo Peishan was promoted to the minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Now that she had become the adopted daughter of Great Elder Princess, her status was basically equal to those first-class noble ladies in the capital city. Marrying a princess meant cutting off their future, so they were not as good as infanta in marriage. However, these infantas' fathers did not have much power and none of them had great power. Therefore, Their value was inferior to that of the noble ladies from the families of the important officials in the court. Therefore, the princesses and infanta of Qiyuan were actually worthless, and they might not even be comparable to ordinary imperial daughters with powerful fathers. Sun Yijiao was married and Wan Fengfei was engaged. As the most beloved granddaughter of the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel and the adopted daughter of Great Elder Princess, it was not a big deal if it was just one of them. But when the two were added together, Jingwan became the most valuable noble lady in a marriage alliance. Jingwan had a bad reputation before, which made many rich families give up on the idea of marrying her. Now they were very regretful. Originally at that time, if they sincerely came to ask for her hand in marriage instead of acting high and mighty as if they were doing her a favor, the Luo family would most likely agree. But now, even if they wanted to make a move, most of the families simply couldn't do it. This girl's marriage was also full of twists and turns. Those who knew her well knew that she did not do anything wrong. However, if this girl really brought bad luck to her husband, there might be some problems. They could no longer covet this girl to be their daughter-in-law and granddaughter-in-law, so they might as well watch the show, which might be wonderful. After Great Elder Princess led her to meet the guests, Wangzhu Yuyao took her new sister to play around and said that she wanted her to be familiar with Great Elder Princess's mansion. For the Qiyuan dynasty, which cared a lot about their adopted relatives, and Great Elder Princess cared a lot about Jingwan, this place could be regarded as a small part of Jingwan's home. It was no problem for her to live here for a few days from time to time. Yao might be a little spoiled, but she was innocent and lovely. In addition, she might be the only master in Great Elder Princess's mansion who was not hostile to Jingwan except for the two elders. Jingwan liked her very much. Jingwan saw a few Wangye in the garden as well as a group of talented youths. Seeing them from a distance, Jingwan pulled Yu Yao to stop and squatted as a salute. Then she took Yu Yao's hand and left from the other side. He came suddenly and left even faster. However, most people saw his figure. It was said that clothes made the man and gold made the Buddha. This sentence was somewhat reasonable sometimes. More importantly, Jingwan could suppress herself. Although she was not a stunning beauty, she was not bad at all. Except for those men who only looked at the face. If there was a peerless beauty next to Jingwan, he would most likely choose Jingwan. Not to mention Kong Qinwang, whose empress mother intended to make her his second princess. Even the Gong Qinwang, who loved his wife as much as his life, and even Rui Qinwang, not to mention the younger princes, all had their eyes on Jingwan. Prince Kang's lustful eyes were too obvious. Because of the empress's words, he almost regarded Jingwan as his wife. Prince Rui couldn't help but replace the image of Luo Jingying with Jingwan's face in his memory. Sun Yilan's heart ached to the extreme. She should have been his wife. Li Hongyuan's face was so dark that ink was about to drip out. Each and every one of them dared to covet his wife. They were all courting death. Originally, after Lu Qingdi summoned him to the palace, he quickly found out that this marriage was requested by Jingwan. Even if his old man didn't say anything, he knew what Luo Peishan presented. Gong Mama had already sent him a letter to inform him, but he didn't know Jingwan's intentions. When she finally went to find Luo Peishan, Gong Mama happened to miss her, so he didn't know the specific situation first. No matter what Jingwan's purpose was, asking for this marriage was enough to make him excited. Ever since he found out about this was the first time his face turned dark. If he didn't make them suffer a bit, he really wouldn't be able to live up to his title as the living king of hell. As for the clairvoyance and the crossbow that could shoot 5 times in a row, Li Hongyuan had seen them in his previous life. Especially later, when he went to war in person, he personally experienced the benefits of the clairvoyance and the power of the crossbow. He knew how to make these two things because after Jingwan's death, he carefully studied everything that Jingwan made. However, in these years after he came back, he had never thought of making these two things by himself. It was the glory of Wan. Someone touched the eldest son of Great Elder Princess and smiled ambiguously. Such a tender adopted sister. Don't talk nonsense. Be careful not to be skinned by my mother. The eldest son of Great Elder Princess's mansion smiled helplessly. His wife had nagged him that his mother had prepared a lot of good things for his adopted sister as a gift to acknowledge her as her biological daughter. Why does Great Elder Princess suddenly want to adopt her as her adopted daughter? Is there any reason? I don't know. Maybe my mother really likes her. In fact, Mr. Jiang probably knew the reason. On the day before 3rd Miss Luo came to Great Elder Princess's mansion, someone came to the palace. It must be the emperor's uncle's idea. As long as it was related to the emperor, there must be a purpose for everything. The ultimate purpose of promoting a girl's status was to increase her social status. Only in this way could she be worthy of a noble husband. If she wanted to be included in the harem, be a concubine of a prince, or even be a step-princess, there was no need to do so. He glanced at Prince Jean vaguely. No matter what the truth was, he shouldn't ask about it. His mother said that when the new emperor ascended the throne, it was time for him and his brother to stand out. Although today was a grand day, Liqingdi didn't deliberately give the courtiers a holiday. Great Elder Princess kept Jingwan for a long time. When it was almost evening, she let her go back. However, along the way they attracted a lot of onlookers. It was because Great Elder Princess had prepared too many gifts. There were 10 carriages full of gifts. No wonder Great Elder Princess's daughters-in-law were very angry. In fact, when Great Elder Princess adopted Jingwan as her adopted daughter, she knew that her plan would fail. She knew Princess Zhang's sister-in-law very well. If it weren't for Liqingdi's instruction, she would never make friends with the important courtiers. Even so, she was still a little unwilling. Therefore, she tentatively proposed to Liqingdi to let Jingwan be Prince Kang's step-princess. Liqingdi glanced at her indifferently and said, "I've already made an arrangement. You can take a look at another candidate for my eldest son's step-princess." Although she had expected it, the Empress still couldn't help but feel angry. Her son was the eldest son of the legal wife. Although his ability was a little mediocre, he didn't make any big mistakes. Theoretically, he was a legitimate candidate for the crown prince. However, not only was he not conferred the title of crown prince, but he was also suppressed everywhere. Although the Empress was excellent at enduring, sometimes she couldn't help but vomit blood in her heart. 3 days later, Liqingdi's imperial edict was issued. Yes, it was another imperial edict to grant marriage. When the imperial edict was issued, those who were still thinking of various ideas were caught off guard. At this time, if they still didn't know that Great Elder Princess adopted Luo Peishan as her adopted daughter for the sake of Prince Jean, they would be in vain. After so many plans, they finally came to such a result. Liqingdi clearly didn't want any of them to use Luo Peishan, right? At least they couldn't rope him in by marriage. However, this imperial edict caused many people who were jealous of Jingwan to rejoice in her misfortune once again. There were even people who secretly started betting on how long it would take for Jingwan to die, be crippled, or be tarnished. They bet on how long it would take for Jingwan to die, be crippled, or be tarnished. They bet on how long it would take for Jingwan to die, be crippled, or even be tarnished. Luo Peishan is also a jinx to her husband. Maybe she is as tough as Prince Jean. What if they have a good ending? Prince Jean is only her 3rd fiancé. She is Prince Jin's 8th fiancé. Even if she is lucky and doesn't have an accident, she will definitely not have a good ending after marrying into Prince Jin's mansion. Don't forget, Wan Fengfei is Prince Jin's prospective concubine. How can she compare with Wan Fengfei? Don't laugh at me. However, it was not the first time that Jingwan humiliated them. Even if Jingwan fell to the bottom, she would stand up in a higher position. But these people just couldn't learn. When hearing this imperial edict, Wan Fengfei, who was good-natured, smashed things for the first time, and it was her whole house. Her face was gloomy and she was just like a ghost. It's not unreasonable to dislike her from the beginning. However, now it seemed that it was hard to vent her anger by killing her directly. You couldn't marry Jean Qinhuang after that. Even if you wanted to fill that hole, you wouldn't be able to. Don't think about these useless things. If my Sanji heard it, he would be jealous. You're still in the mood to joke around? Sun Yijia was annoyed. Sister-in-law, don't be so absolute. That's right. You're right. Nothing is absolute. Sun Yijia seemed to have thought of something. There's still more than half a year before your hairpin ceremony. During this time, anything can happen. I can do it, you can also do it. Jingwan already understood what Sun Yijia was thinking about. Ancestor, could this kind of thing be casually schemed against? If it wasn't done well, it would implicate the entire family. Especially when her own family took the initiative to ask for it. If the emperor found out, she didn't know how furious he would be. When she needed it, she would cling on to it. When she didn't need it, she would just clap her hands and leave. What is your Tian family? What is the dignity of a Qinhuang? She must dispel this idea. Jingwan leaned forward and whispered a few words in her ear. Sun Yijiao looked at Jingwan in shock. She didn't dare to believe it. Why? Why did she have to do this? Fine, she could barely understand why Jingwan did this. But Luo Darren and old Madam loved Wan Mimi so much. Why would they agree to this matter? If it wasn't done well, it would ruin Wan Mimi's entire life. How could they bear to do that? Or was it that they were actually the same as the elders of other families? When it came to the family, all their love and care would turn into nothingness in an instant. Was there really no warmth in this world? Jingwan saw her face full of despair, even looking like she was about to collapse. AI, what kind of brain hole did she open again? Be good. It's not like what you think. I really don't care. Sister-in-law, if Jin Qinhuang doesn't care about me, I might have a chance to escape. But if he cares about me, I won't have a bad life. You have to think about it this way. What if your family's youngest aunt's charm is invincible and can even subdue Jin Qinhuang? Everyone knew that Jingwan was joking, but Gong Mama behind her silently told her in her heart, "Miss, you really have invincible charm. You don't need to subdue him, that living king of hell has long been subdued." And in the future, after seeing how the living king of hell doted on Jingwan, Sun Yijiao would recall Jingwan's words today. She was filled with endless emotions. Sure enough, no matter who it was, there would always be a person who could make them soft. It was only a matter of meeting them or not, and the way of meeting them was right or wrong. And between Wan Mimi and Jin Qinhuang, there was nothing wrong. Well, for the time being she had coaxed one. The others shouldn't need her to coax anymore. Right now she was probably going to see her grandmother. When Li Hongyuan found out, he didn't stop him at the door. Li Hongyuan was handling some matters in the study. When Sun Yilin came in, he didn't hide anything. Although Sun Yilin didn't see what was on the table, but looking at Li Hongyuan's expression he could guess what it was. His heart thumped. The more the other party didn't hide it, the worse his situation would be. This official greets Wang Ye. Li Hongyuan didn't even lift his eyelids, looking for Ben Wang. What is the matter? He obviously came for Jingwan, but at this moment, Sun Yilin couldn't say a word. It was reasonable to say that after breaking off the engagement with Jingwan, there was no longer any relationship. As her ex-fiancé, if he said something in front of her current fiancé, the one who would be in the most disadvantageous position would be Jingwan. Although the 3 books and 6 rights hadn't left, but the imperial edict itself was more useful than anything else. He didn't drink, so his mind was very clear. He knew that he was rash. Li Hongyuan finished writing and casually threw the brush. Ben Wang probably knows why you came. I have to say you really have courage. However, Ben Wang's heart has always been small. Wang Ye, this has nothing to do with Luo Sangunyang, Li Hongyuan sneered. Sun Yilin, why do you think that Ben Wang will vent his anger on my fiancé instead of directly looking for you, the main culprit? His eyes were gradually dyed with malice. She is Ben Wang's. Be careful of Ben Wang's people dying without a burial place. As long as you are smart, don't try to get close to her in the future. Scram, if one paid a little attention that day in Great Princess Royal Fu, those who showed a strange expression towards Jingwan, more or less had something happen in these 2 days. If they didn't go too far and cause trouble, Li Hongyuan would have them lie in bed for 10 days to half a month. Sun Yilin took a deep breath. This official takes his leave. Sun Yilin entered Jin Wangfu and left not long after. Outsiders reckoned that it was probably just a few words of time, and Sun Yilin's complexion was dark and heavy, so it definitely wasn't some pleasant conversation. Sun Yilin sat silently in the carriage. He truly realized the gap between himself and Jin Qinhuang. That man not only hid deeply, but his momentum was also powerful enough to make people tremble. He really didn't have any capital to compete with him, and it would be strange for such a man to lose in the end. So at least he could rest assured that even if Jingwan married him, she wouldn't be unlucky enough to be settled with him. It was more likely that Jingwan would reign over the world. Jin Qinhuang's possessiveness towards Jingwan, whether it was because Jingwan was his fiancé or for other reasons, at least he was tolerant of his own people. So Jingwan's days in the future probably wouldn't be very bad. It was just that he really couldn't get close to her anymore. If he couldn't control himself and did something that he shouldn't do, it wouldn't be good for either side. At the same time, Li Hongming also fell into a dilemma. The most valuable person in the Luo family fell into the hands of that bastard. No matter how good the chess piece was, it was equivalent to a useless chess piece in his hands. After thinking about it, it was time to ask Luo Peishan for the person. Even if Luo Rongping secretly relied on him, it wasn't as reliable as directly grabbing a person in his hands. After all, Sun Yijia married into the Luo family. Even if this line of interest was weak, it still existed and he must have one. When Li Hongming came to the door, Luo Peishan wasn't surprised at all. He had long expected this day. Wang Ye, fourth girl, is of low birth and doesn't have the qualifications to serve Wang Ye, so Wang Ye asks for forgiveness. Li Hongming saw that Luo Peishan was determined not to agree with him. Since that was the case, his face showed hesitation and also some helplessness. Luo Darren, Ben Wang will tell you the truth. Ben Wang fell in love with your Fu's fourth miss at first sight and couldn't control myself, so... Luo Peishan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Luo Darren, don't be angry. Ben Wang will apologize to you. It's just that this matter is this one's fault. So please don't blame 4th Mississippi. Ben Wang also sincerely wants to marry your Fu's 4th Mississippi. Ben Wang asks Luo Darren to fulfill this wish. Marry? Luo Peishan's face didn't improve in the slightest. Only Wang Fei can marry properly. Wang Ye shouldn't speak irresponsibly. If Lu Gulao heard this, he would fight this old official to the death. Yes. Luo Darren is right. It was Ben Wang's mistake. Ben Wang is willing to take 4th Miss as a concubine. Ben Wang asks Luo Darren to fulfill this wish. Li Hongming put on a proper posture without any arrogance. Prince Ray, please don't joke with this official. Even if it's a concubine, she still has to perform the full ceremony. How can a woman who can't take out a cloth on the day of the wedding be a concubine of a prince? Does Wang Ye want to let everyone know that my Luo family has a girl who lost her chastity before marriage? At that time, my Luo family will lose all face and the reputation of the other girls of the Luo family will hit rock bottom. Just like the Shin family now, the girls don't even dare to leave the house. This old official didn't offend Wang Ye, right? How can you humiliate the Luo family like this? Li Hongming was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Because of the mention of the Shin family, his face turned green and white. However, he couldn't vent his anger on Luo Peishan. Luo Darren, it's Ben Wang's fault. I didn't think it through. You can't do this. Ben Wang will carry 4th Miss into the mansion first. When she is pregnant, Ben Wang will ask for her to be concubine. What do you think? Luo Peishan looked at Li Hongming for a moment. Wang Ye, please allow this old official to go back and think about it. Of course, there's no problem. This old official will take his leave. Li Hongming looked in the direction Luo Peishan left. In his opinion, this matter was in the bag. What he meant by to think about it was probably to go back and confirm the authenticity of this matter. He was sure that Luo Jingying would side with him. However, perhaps the Luo family already knew about this matter. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been no news of Luo Jingying for nearly half a month. Luo Peishan really had the strength of a scholar. He was so serious. Things like a silk handkerchief could also be faked. However, Luo Jingying's status was indeed a bit low. Her biological father wasn't much better than Jingwan's biological father. Her reputation wasn't even as good as second master Luo's, and she was born of a concubine. She didn't have the favor of an elder and she didn't have a noble godmother. It was a bit difficult to take her as a concubine at once. It would be good to bring her into the mansion. After getting into the carriage, Luo Peishan put away his anger and looked indifferent. Everything just now was just an act for Li Hongming to see. He also seized the opportunity to stab him. It had to be said that the minister of the Ministry of Personnel, Luo Darren, was a proper actor. Back home, Luo Peishan told old Madame Luo that Luo Jingying could be released. Prince Rui has come? Luo Peishan nodded his head. I know. I will arrange this. Old Madame Luo said. If it weren't for Jin Qinhuang's insistence on sending Luo Jingying into Prince Rui's Fu, Luo Jingying would have already been dealt with by her. This is also good. Jinggua's daughter-in-law is from Dinggua Gong Fu. If she enters Prince Rui's Fu, it will balance things out. Otherwise, Prince Rui won't let you go. Luo Peishan now completely didn't consider the issue of his position. It was enough to do his own things. It didn't matter if he had to face the Wang Ye who were courteous to the wise all day. However, there were always buzzing flies, which was also annoying. Luo Jingying was able to see the light of day again. Old Madame Luo also simply and crudely told the matter to the third branch. Luo Jingying was very happy. After that, the stone in Lushir and Luo Rongping's hearts also fell to the ground. Even if Lushir was abnormally disappointed with Luo Jingying at this time, She also excitedly prepared to go back and count the dowry prepared for Luo Jingying. A small palanquin is carried into Prince Rui's fu as a concubine. How can there be a dowry? There isn't even a red dress. Old Madame Luo poured a basin of cold water. If you really want her well, it is proper to prepare more silver for her, especially small banknotes. When entering the fu, you need to bribe the servants. If you are too generous, people will think you are a sucker. If you are too stingy, who will run errands for you? Old Madame Luo saw that Luo Jingying had Luo family's blood flowing in her, so she gave a few words of advice. However, it seemed that Luo Jingying wouldn't listen. Grandmother, those things before were all given to granddaughter by Prince Rui. Can they be returned to granddaughter? Old Madame Luo looked at Luo Jingying's proud face and puffed out chest. She turned around indifferently and left. This kind of person really wasn't worth her effort. In the future, if she suffered a loss in the food, just don't cry. Especially things like the phoenix tail hairpin. Shut up, your grandmother already sent those things over. When Mrs. Lu saw Luo Jingying's petty appearance, she also hated her. Luo Jingying pursed her lips, but after a moment of discomfort she showed a proud attitude. Mrs. Lu carefully looked at her daughter and suddenly felt that she was very stupid for putting all her hopes on her daughter. She always thought that her daughter was so outstanding and good, but in fact she was just mud that couldn't support the wall. She even wanted to pry open her daughter's head to see if her brain was a bag of grass. At this time she still couldn't see the reality. If there was no Luo family, how could she have a foothold in Prince Rui's fu? Do you really think that Prince Rui likes you? Idiot. Chapter 143. Probably because she was about to get what she wanted, Luo Jingying's attitude in the Luo family rose imperceptibly. First of all, she began to be picky about what she ate and what she used to wear. In her mouth, the things she used to eat became food for animals. Her favorite clothes in the past were now rubbing against her delicate skin. Mrs. Lu looked on coldly and let her do whatever she wanted. She was too lazy to pay attention to her. However, in just a short day she completely understood that her daughter was not only a useless person, but also an ungrateful ingrate. She dared to order her own mother around and acted as if she was superior. With this kind of person, even if she gained power in the future, it was impossible to get anything good from her. Maybe some of the things that happened in the past would be dug out and used as proof that you didn't treat her well. However, she clearly knew what Prince Rui was after. She thought that Prince Rui really liked her and wanted to take her into the family just because of her. She had never woken up from her dream. Seeing Mrs. Lu's attitude, Luo Jingying was very angry. However, she was helpless now, so she could only suppress all her resentment in the bottom of her heart. Kneeling to the heavens, kneeling to the earth, kneeling to the monarch and kneeling to one's parents was very normal. However, there were parents who kneeled to their children instead. She would make all those who wronged her kneel at her feet. There were still 2 days before the Dragon Boat Festival. Prince Rui would only take her into the family after the Dragon Boat Festival. However, she should be able to see him during the Dragon Boat Festival. After not seeing him for so long, she really missed him. Luo Jingying was in a daze and giggled. People who didn't know would think that she was a fool. When Luo Jingying finally calmed down, she began to ask a temporary maid beside her, "What happened recently?" Before, when she was grounded, her courtyard was directly sealed. Her meals were sent to her regularly. She was only left with an old woman and a wooden maid to serve her. Therefore she knew nothing about what happened outside. There were indeed a few incidents recently, and all of them were related to the Luo family, or more precisely the Luo family's third young lady. Luo Jingying couldn't help laughing when she heard that someone claimed to have come with Sun Yilan's child and slapped Jingwan's face fiercely. When she heard that Jingwan and Sun Yilan had broken off the engagement, Luo Jingying applauded. The young maidservant couldn't stand Luo Jingying's undisguised schadenfreude. It was no wonder that someone like the third young lady would become enemies with her. In the entire manor, the servants who served her were replaced one after another, and there were not many who were willing to serve her. She had no choice but to be sent by the third madam. However, the third madam had also said that it would only be a few days. Perhaps she really didn't like Luo Jingying's face, so she vividly told Luo Jingying that Great Elder Princess had prepared a lot of precious gifts for the third young lady to be her adopted daughter. She also told Luo Jingying about the clothes the third young lady wore that day, which were very stylish. Luo Jingying, who was laughing very happily a moment ago, turned ferocious in an instant like a ferocious ghost. "Shut up, you traitorous little bitch. If you're so envious, go serve Luo Jingwan if you have the ability. What are you still doing here?" She picked up something next to her and threw it at her. The maidservant was also alert. She probably knew that Luo Jingying would go crazy, so she nimbly dodged. This servant also doesn't want to serve Mississippi. Luo Jingwan was furious. Unfortunately, he was a delicate girl in the boudoir and couldn't catch her. The young maidservant seemed to feel that it was not enough to vent her anger, so she said that Jingwan was bestowed to Prince Jin. However, Luo Jingying stopped this time. "Princess? Princess of the living king of hell?" Luo Jingying even tidied up in a good mood. She no longer hid the things that Prince Rui had given her before. Although a few were broken by old Madame Luo, most of them were still intact. However, because she didn't have suitable clothes to match, Luo Jingying only chose a few simple ones. For people who didn't know the goods and simply thought that they looked good, it was still very harmonious. Luo Jingying directly went to the elegant begonia residence with her head held high. Jingwan saw that Luo Jingying only brought a young maidservant and broke into her courtyard. She was really open-minded. Moreover, she didn't even mind that it was shabby. She had always liked to be surrounded by attendants. Luo Jingying originally thought that she would see the depressed, thin and haggard Jingwan. As a result, Jingwan still had a happy expression. Her complexion was rosy and the skin that was exposed was so tender that water could be pinched out. She subconsciously withdrew her hand. She probably didn't know that when facing Jingwan, she always had a subconscious inferiority complex. She thought that she was better than Jingwan in every aspect, but in reality she couldn't compare to her in any aspect. Fourth younger sister, congratulations on your recovery. It's just that fourth younger sister has been sick every 2 to 3 days, and every time she's sick, it's for 10 days to half a month. He's so weak, what should we do? Jingwan took a sip of tea. Luo Jingying, you don't have to be hypocritical in front of me. It makes people feel disgusted. Jingwan raised her eyebrows in surprise. Why would I feel disgusted without any reason? Fourth Mimi, did you eat something bad or? Jingwan's gaze swept over her lower abdomen. Luo Jingying subconsciously covered her lower abdomen, as if her secret had been exposed. Jingwan actually knew everything about Luo Jingying. Just this morning Madame Luo had told her everything. She couldn't really be pregnant, right? She had hit the jackpot this time. Should she say that she had some dog shit luck? Prince Rui had difficulties in having children. He still didn't have a son. Giving birth to the eldest concubine-born son for him was a good thing. However, it was reasonable to say that Luo Jingying, a girl, suddenly lost her virginity. In this conservative world, she shouldn't know more than that unless someone told her. At the very least, the most basic judgment was probably that she was having a normal life. However, Jingwan wasn't interested in this kind of thing. With Luo Jingying's brain, once Prince Rui realized that she was actually worthless and stopped protecting her, she would probably be eaten up very quickly. Fourth Mimi, why are you looking for me? Luo Jingying slowly put down her hand. She wasn't sure if she was really pregnant. It was just that her normal life hadn't come yet. She originally wanted to wait a little longer. She didn't expect that she would suddenly be released and soon be taken away. Thus she chose to hide it. She wanted her husband to be the first to know. Moreover, what if it was spread out and someone harmed her child? That's right. In her opinion, other than Li Hongming, her biological parents were not worthy of her trust. I just heard that third Mimi broke off the engagement with Lin Gongzi, which surprised me. Ayaya, speaking of which, third Mimi has only been in the capital for 2 or 3 months, and you have already talked about several marriages in succession. However, after the engagement you broke off the engagement faster and faster. Third Mimi, don't tell me you brought bad luck to your husband. She shook her head regretfully, but fortunately, third Mimi is a rare commodity worth hoarding. You don't have to worry about no one wanting you. Jingwan nodded. Fourth Mimi's words are correct. Isn't Jiejia's third fiancé? Each one is more noble than the other. My life is too good, so there's no way around it. Luo Jingying's expression was slightly distorted. It was this flaunting tone. Jin Qinhuang's reputation wasn't good, but he was a genuine Qinhuang. He was incomparably honorable. She heard that he even had wealth comparable to the national treasury. Not only that, he also had the most precious treasures in the world. There are 7 in front and 6 are wasted. I just don't know how long third Mimi can hold on. Let's not talk about other things. Fourth Mimi will definitely be able to see the day I marry. That's not right. You probably won't be able to see it. After all, as a concubine, I probably won't have the chance to return to my maternal home in my lifetime. I might not even be able to walk out of the second door of the Wangfu. How can Fourth Mimi see me get married? Because the other party was Prince Rue, the most promising candidate for the crown prince, she was willing to be a concubine. Because in the future she would have limitless glory. But now that she heard the word concubine from Luo Jingwan's mouth, she couldn't wait to tear her mouth apart. Even if I am a concubine, it's still better than you. I don't know that I will be cursed to death that day. However, third Mimi, you are also cursed to your husband. Maybe nothing will happen. In Mimi's opinion, although Jin Qinhuang's reputation isn't good, but in this marriage, third Mimi, you have the advantage. You can't get married, Jin Qinhuang can't find a wife. He is Qi Yuan's #1 handsome man, and you are not Qi Yuan's #1 beauty. No matter how you look at it, you have the advantage, don't you think so? Jingwan looked at Luo Jingying. She didn't know that it could be considered this way. She calmly nodded. Fresh flowers paired with cow dung. Naturally, cow dung is more advantageous. So shameless. Luo Jingying was so angry that her liver hurt. Third Mimi has self-awareness. That's right. Just like fourth Mimi, I know that I can only be a concubine. Luo Jing, fourth Mimi, you can keep your voice down. I'm not deaf. Luo Jingying sneered. Sooner or later, you will kneel down and beg me. Jingwan laughed. I'm grandfather's most beloved granddaughter. My adoptive mother is great elder princess and my fiancé is Jin Qinhuang. Now people say that I'm the first noble lady in the capital. What about you? You are just a concubine who is about to enter the prince's mansion. Kneel down and beg you? Is there something wrong with your brain? She tilted her head and looked at Luo Jingying as if she was watching a joke. It was really interesting. So what if great elder princess accepts you as her adoptive daughter? Do you really think that she likes you and values you? She just despises your low status and thinks that you are not qualified to be Jin Qinhuang's princess consort. No matter how noble you are, what can you do? Do you want me, as your younger sister, to tell you what kind of miserable ending Jin Qinhuang's previous fiancés had in the end? Chapter 144. Luo Jingying's face alternated between green and white. Wasn't it obvious that the clothes she had carefully selected were not as good as Sunny Jia's old clothes? At this moment she really hated the two people in front of her. Little sister, I forgot that third sister-in-law and third sister are fated to be together. After all, this man you are both. Slap. Ah, Luo Jingying screamed, you lowly slave, how dare you hit me? She reached out to hit back. However, she had to see who was the one who hit her. Nanny Gong grabbed her wrist. I'm just telling fourth young lady that you can't eat this thing carelessly, and you can't speak carelessly. Prince Rue won't let you off. Luo Jingying shouted fiercely. Nanny Gong smiled awkwardly. Prince Rue? How awe-inspiring. Fourth young lady, do you know that sometimes if you speak carelessly, it won't be as simple as a slap. It can cost your life. Luo Jingying's eyes flashed with panic. What do you want? I'll tell you, then I'll also tell you that this is the Luo family, and you are still the fourth young lady of the Luo family. You lost your chastity before marriage and brought shame to the family. You are still alive now because Master and Madam are merciful. What made you think that it was Prince Rue who saved your life? The fox also knows that when the tiger is around it will support you. Right now, you are just a pitiful worm with no one to rely on. What right do you have to gossip about your sister and sister-in-law? Meeting Nanny Gong's sharp eyes, Luo Jingying found it difficult to breathe, let alone struggle. Moreover, was the matter of losing one's chastity before marriage known to everyone? That biased old granny you. She couldn't bear to see her living well? Would she only be happy if she ruined her reputation? Perhaps it was rare for her to be quick-witted. She looked at Jingwan as if she was dipped in poison. Is this the servant you raised well? How dare you offend your superiors? Jingwan looked at Luo Jingying with a smile. Offend my superiors? What kind of superiors are you? Your mother doesn't even take you seriously and you still want me, your sworn enemy since young, to take you seriously? Jingwan's smile gradually faded. In fact, you still dare to step into my courtyard. Your courage is commendable. Nanny, throw her out. Since Jingwan spoke, Nanny Gong was more impolite. She grabbed Luo Jingying and dragged her out. Of course, she said, of course. Nanny Gong with the other hand scratched Nanny Gong's. Nanny Gong used to be a secret guard and she was younger than she was now. As long as she wanted, she could carry Luo Jingying as if she was a chick. Luo Jingying's resistance was like a worm in her eyes. As for scratching, Luo Jingying screamed again. She only felt that the bones in her wrist were about to be broken. Luo Jingying cursed loudly. Not only Nanny Gong but Jingwan was also cursed by her. Naturally, Nanny Gong would treat her even more coldly. Then outside Begonia Elegant House, Nanny Gong really threw her out without hesitation, because at that moment, Luo Jingying's whole body was off the ground. Luo Jingying fell hard, but Nanny Gong knew what to do, so it was not very serious. After all, she had seen Luo Jingying's reaction before. If she was really pregnant and something happened to her here, it would not be good for her reputation. That's right. Nanny Gong was not worried about explaining to Prince Rui at all. That's right. In Nanny Gong's opinion, if something really happened, Prince Rui would think of a way to deal with it. If he kept her in the dark and schemed against her, he would naturally take responsibility. Sun Yijiao looked in the direction of the courtyard gate. She can't see the situation clearly at all. Even if she enters Prince Rui's mansion, how long can she live? She looks like she's sick in the head. She's probably delusional. Although Sun Yijiao did not know what delusional disorder was, she miraculously understood at this moment. Jingwan sometimes wondered. Was Luo Jingying infatuated with Prince Rui, or was it purely because of his power? Prince Rui was also handsome and elegant. That face, other than Prince Jin, was probably one of the best among all the princes. More importantly, he had a good temper. According to the rumors, he was cultured and refined. Moreover, he was very gentle and considerate towards Princess Rui. Under certain circumstances, for many unmarried ladies, this kind of man was actually a big killer. If he had the intention to get close to Luo Jingying, no, as long as he had the intention to seduce those unmarried ladies, those who would not be charmed by him should be very few. After all, those unmarried ladies, even if they had a mother who was a top expert in domestic combat and learned some good skills in domestic combat under the influence of others, they were still mostly clueless about the matters between men and women. If there was a man like Prince Rui who had all kinds of excellent conditions and was a veteran in the field of romance, deliberately plotting against them, most of the young ladies in their teens would be hooked up. That being said, Luo Jingying should be infatuated with the powerful Prince Rui. If Prince Rui only had excellent external conditions or the title of prince, it would be strange for Luo Jingying to take the initiative to stick to him. Luo Jingying clearly saw Jingwan's attitude. It really was not the least bit lenient. Moreover, she was not sure if she was really pregnant. If something happened to her, she would be distressed to death. Therefore, she did not dare to make a fuss. "You lowly servant, why aren't you helping this lady up?" However, the servant girl just pursed her lips and looked at her. She had no intention of going forward at all, because she had just heard something terrible. The fourth young lady was actually, how could a lady from a noble family be so shameless? She even wanted her to help her up. It would dirty her hands. Moreover, this kind of thing, if not done properly, she would lose her life. Luo Jingying waited for a long time. As a result, the servant girl looked at her as if she was looking at something dirty. She was burning with anger. Seeing that more and more people were surrounding them, Luo Jingying was ashamed and angry. She endured the pain and got up. However, she endured it and did not attack the servant girl again. She also did not think about who to seek justice for her. It was not that her mother did not take her seriously. Who could seek justice for her? She knew that Luo Jingying, that bitch, was thick-skinned than the city wall. Why did she foolishly come to her? It was just that monstrous hatred was like thousands of ants gnawing at her heart, making her almost crazy. Luo Jingying looked at her wrist. It was red and swollen. Moreover, the pain coming from inside was even more intense. Just moving her fingers slightly made her unable to stop herself from hissing and sucking in cold air. Such a sorry figure was seen by the servants who were passing by. Even they felt that Luo Jingying's brain had a hole. No matter what kind of marriage the third young lady had, as long as she was still in the Luo family, she would be the most honorable lady in the Luo family. Moreover, no matter how bad Jin Qinhuang's reputation was, the third young lady would still be the most honorable Wang Fei after marrying over. No matter how she was in Jin Qinhuang Fu outside, she would still be respected by everyone. How could an insignificant concubine like you compare to her? As for whether or not the third young lady would be cursed by Jin Qinhuang, no one could make wild guesses about something that had not happened. That's right, the entire Luo family knew that Luo Jingying was going to enter Rui Wang Fu as a concubine. From the beginning, old Madame Luo had never thought of hiding it, because this kind of thing simply could not be hidden. Once she entered Rui Wang Fu, Prince Rui would also make it known to everyone and announce his close relationship with the Luo family. Since that was the case, there was no need to hide it. No matter what, she was still a young lady of the minister's Fu. With her grandfather's support, it was the time to choose a good marriage. Even if it could not be one of the best families, it was completely fine if it was one of the worst ones. There was a long line of people waiting for her to choose. Leoi's body looked very healthy and he could still sit on the position of Minister of Personnel for many years. Thus, when she married into the husband's family, she would be held in high regard. In the end, she was going to enter the Wang Fu as a concubine and be a lowly concubine. Anyone who heard this would find it inconceivable. Even if she was going to be a concubine, she could at least be a secondary concubine. However, she was completely inferior. Moreover, she was not even of marriageable age yet, but she was already so impatient. Anyone with a brain could guess that there was something fishy going on. The young people might not know the specifics, but the older people were, the more experienced they were. They all chuckled in their hearts. When they thought about how fourth young lady had been sick again during this period of time, they basically knew what was going on. However, this kind of thing could only be tacitly understood. Even if they were gossiping, they had to distinguish between different things. Otherwise, they would be sold. In such a situation, the smart one should curry favor with third young lady, and then curry favor with Leoi and old madam. Then with Leoi's support after entering the Wang Fu, she would at least have a 30% chance of success. Even if there was an unresolvable enmity between her and third young lady, she should tuck her tail between her legs and behave herself. However, the reality was exactly the opposite. She even dared to find trouble with third young lady. Speaking of which, Sun Yijia was in a bad mood recently because of Jingwan's marriage. In the Luo family, she could not vent her anger on other people, but she did not need to be polite to Luo Jingying at all. As more and more fine brushwork books were published, Luo Jinghua seemed to be even busier. Not only did he have to busy painting and continue to organize the books, but there were also more and more banquets outside. Naturally, he did not have so much time to accompany Sun Yijia. Fortunately, Sun Yijia did not care. Although the people around her were worried that Luo Jinghua would be seduced by the little vixen outside, after all, when those scholars gathered together and asked for prostitutes to accompany them, it was said to be elegant. Even if the son-in-law did not have any intention, it was hard to guarantee that there would be shameless people who would insist on getting close to him. In addition, if he was drunk, he would be at the mercy of others. It would be a lie to say that Sun Yijia was not worried at all. If it was just a short-lived marriage, it was fine. She was just worried that they would be deliberately schemed against and have no choice but to bring him home. However, Luo Jinghua had already made such a promise, so she could only suppress these worries in her heart. If it really happened, she would think of a way to help him deal with the aftermath. Just as she was thinking about this, she did not expect that Luo Jinghua would actually come looking for her at this time. Jinghua, didn't you say that you were going out to attend a literary event? Why haven't you left yet? Sun Yijia asked curiously. Third brother, you can't bear to part with sister-in-law, right? You should check again before you go out, Jingwan teased. Now that they were married, their skin had become thicker. Not only Luo Jinghua, but even Sun Yijia could not change her expression. Therefore, Luo Jinghua only smiled and said, I'm here to look for little sister. Third brother, what's the matter? Well, I want to borrow little sister Hei Mei for a day. Speaking of this, Luo Jinghua was also quite embarrassed, but he had no choice. After all, he was limited by his status. If he rejected a woman who voluntarily came to him, he would inevitably offend some people who deliberately sent themselves to him. In the past he could barely muddle through, but today was different. He was worried that he would not be able to handle it, so he thought of this method. It was not easy to bring his wife, but it was not a problem to bring a servant girl. With a beauty by his side, and a rather special beauty at that, those people would definitely restrain themselves. Without needing to explain in detail, Jingwan also understood Luo Jinghua's intention. She looked at Sun Yijia rather ambiguously. Sun Yijia could not help but blush at this moment. She glared at Jingwan and said, just say whether you want to borrow her or not. Borrow, 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 how can I not lend her? She turned around and said, Little sister Hey May, accompany third brother to go out and have fun today. Yes, Mississippi. Little sister Hey May responded very straightforwardly. She did not have any intention of being unwilling. Luo Jingbo also slightly breathed a sigh of relief. Although little sister Hey May would not disagree with his little sister's words, it was better to be willing than not being willing. Jingwan thought for a moment and said, Bai Xiao also go with them. Bai Xiao was more shrewd than little sister Hey May when it came to doing things. After getting along with them for a few days, she could tell that these two sisters had suffered a lot and had gone through a lot. Their temperament was far better than her 4 servant girls. It would not be difficult for them to handle today's situation. However, little sister Hey May was still resolute in her bones. With Bai Xiao following her, it would be more appropriate. Moreover, the black and white twin sisters were such a gimmick that people would feel ashamed of their inferiority. Yes, Mississippi. Bai Xiao was actually quite worried that her little sister would go out alone. Jingwan stood up and said, Today Miss will personally pick out the clothes and do the makeup for you. Everyone could not help but laugh. Not only did Miss want to support third young master, but she was also in high spirits. Jingwan first put on the beautiful makeup for the 2 sisters, and then asked the servant girls to comb their hair into matching buns. After that she changed into suitable clothes. Jingwan felt that she was going to be obsessed with her own masterpiece. You don't have to be polite to those women who want to get close to third brother. Don't worry, Mississippi. Don't speak carelessly in public. Don't worry about it. Don't I have a sense of propriety? After Luo Jingying went back, she applied medicine on her wrist. However, there was no improvement. She was very stubborn and did not want to look for the Lu matriarch, but in the end she could not help it. When she went to the Lu matriarch, she could not help but cry. She only felt wronged. She had suffered so much, but her mother did not care about her. The Lu matriarch's heart softened for a moment, but only for a moment. She was an ingrate. No matter how good her mother was to her, she would not remember it. Mother, it hurts. Even if it hurts, endure it. You asked for it. Luo Jingying ran to Begonia House again. She always forgot the pain after the scar healed. She could never win. She did not know how to be roundabout. She was like a rash person who barged in recklessly. No matter how much pain she suffered, she deserved it. Mother, how can you do this? I am your daughter. Luo Jingying could not help but shout. Daughter? The Lu matriarch sneered. You want me to be a good mother, but have you ever been a good daughter? If others treat you well, it's natural. If they don't treat you well, you feel wronged. You feel that everyone owes you. Luo Jingying, how shameless are you? Get out of here. Mother, don't regret it. Luo Jingying turned around and ran away. The Lu matriarch regretted it. She regretted teaching her daughter to be like this. She knew that her life was not good now. Although some things were not obvious, she could feel it. Especially her son, who dared to talk back to her because of Huan Yang. She was so angry that her liver hurt. If she didn't find a way to fix it, she would really become a lonely person. In such a situation, how could she still think about the glory of the Lu family? The most important thing was to take care of the current situation. Therefore, after all, she was an experienced person. The Lu matriarch was not like Luo Jingying, who was always confused and unable to see through things. Luo Jingbo was participating in the Dragon Boat Festival, which was relatively grand. Basically, all the young talents in the capital were present. Such a good opportunity to win people over, some of the princes naturally would not miss it. The festival was set up in a stone forest outside the imperial city. It was called a stone forest, but in fact the stones here were all different. They had a unique shape and beauty. There were no man-made carvings, but they were more skillful than man-made carvings. There were also some bustling trees mixed in. After careful trimming and care, some flowers and trees were transplanted, some of the gravel was cleared out, and some natural stone tables were carved. During this period, it became the most beautiful natural place. This place was tacitly recognized as a place for scholars. Almost every day more or less people would visit. And the relatively large festivals were basically in this place. Because Luo Jingbo was waiting for Jingwan to put on the makeup for the black and white beauties, he spent a lot of time. He left later than expected, so naturally he arrived later. Those heavenly embellished nobles had already gathered. Therefore, when Luo Jingbo appeared with the 2 beauties, he immediately attracted a lot of attention. Although Luo Jingbo had already expected this, he still paused. Then, as if nothing had happened, he went forward to greet the nobles. Used to seeing beautiful women with fair skin, no one could help but take a few more glances at Sister Hei, this kind of unconventional beauty. Especially when mixed with a trace of wildness, she was different from ordinary beauties. It was very easy to arouse some people's desire to conquer her. Therefore, there really were some shameless people who were ready to make a move. Jinghua, you have such good luck with women. Where did you get these two strange beauties? The one who spoke was Imperial Prince Kang. Seeing Imperial Prince Kang's lustful eyes almost glued to Sister Hei, Luo Jinghua felt very disgusted. He didn't come into contact with this circle before. Although there were some lustful people around him, none of them was so shameless. After all, he was a prince. There were many beauties around him. How could he show such a dirty look? Didn't they say that he had deep feelings for his princess? Yes, she was already the former Princess Kang. He was just a dead person. After being freed from the shackles, it didn't matter if he indulged her a little. Therefore, Luo Jinghua directly used his killer move and used Jingwan's excuse. They were given to me by Great Elder Princess. It's a grand occasion today, so I'm sure they'll be surrounded by beauties. If I come alone, I'll look shabby. So, Ija borrowed 2 people from me to make up for the occasion, Luo Jinghua said casually. This time, not to mention Imperial Prince Kang, other people's eyes also focused. There was no need to ask who Luo Jinghua's younger sister was. Oh, he also had 2 concubine sisters. It was really embarrassing. More than 99% of the people present didn't know that there were such 2 people. Jingwan's current identity was Great Elder Princess's adopted daughter and Jin Qinhuang's fiancé. Whether it was Great Elder Princess or Jin Qinhuang, they couldn't afford to offend her. So, these 2 beauties, no one could have any improper ideas. Imperial Prince Kang's gaze turned to Li Hongyuan, who was casually drinking wine, and laughed strangely. So it's 6th younger brother's luck with women. Recently, I haven't heard of 6th younger brother doting on any beauties. Is it that the hidden residence doesn't let us know, or is there no one to your liking for the time being? In any case, they are all prepared for you. It's better to take these 2 back. Luo Jinghua couldn't help but frown. Imperial Prince Kang was too much. Li Hongyuan faintly glanced at Imperial Prince Kang. A dog's mouth can't spit out ivory. Li Hongyuan. Imperial Prince Kang suddenly stood up, unable to restrain his anger. With so many people present, he actually didn't give him any face. However, he simply couldn't voice out this kind of question. If he did, Li Hongyuan would refute it. What, did Ben Wang say something wrong? The people Imperial Aunt sent were prepared for me? If you have the ability, say it in front of Imperial Aunt. Also, don't compare Ben Wang with you. It's as if you haven't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes. Imperial Prince Kang almost directly rushed up to fight with him, but fortunately he didn't lose his reason. It's just that, those eyes that couldn't wait to tear Li Hongyuan apart. Unfortunately, eyes weren't knives and had no effect on Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan casually threw the cup on the table and got up to leave. It was because he was bored that he came out to pass the time. But this damned place was even more boring. Jin Qinhuang had always been a willful and reckless person. He came when he wanted to come and went when he wanted to leave. No one dared to say anything. Being swept away in front of so many people, Imperial Prince Kang was so angry that his liver hurt, so he took his anger out on Luo Jinghua. For Luo Jinghua, this simply didn't hurt or itch. The Luo family's current position could be said to have almost returned to its previous neutral position. Luo Peishan had already told them about this point. There was no need to pay attention to these Wangya. It wasn't that they didn't think about whether or not they would be settled by the new emperor in the future. But since grandfather said so, they would naturally do as he said. Grandfather climbed to his current position. The decisions he made were naturally after careful consideration. It was certainly the most beneficial to the Luo family. As grandfather said, if the Luo family was really defeated in the end, then it would be the end of their luck. Many people used obscure gazes to size up Imperial Prince Kang. Although they knew that Jin Qinhuang was powerful, but as the elder brother he was still in such a difficult situation despite holding great power. It was really useless. If such a person became the emperor, the possibility of being overthrown by the ministers was too high. Imperial Prince Rui was watching from the sidelines. He saw everyone's agreement, and this was exactly what he wanted. It had to be said that for him to be able to cultivate his qi today, his good 6th brother had contributed greatly. When facing Li Hongyuan, it was best not to provoke him. If he accidentally provoked him, the way to deal with it was only one word: endure. Otherwise, being angry to the point of liver pain was considered light. The so-called literary assembly naturally couldn't be lacking in poems and essays, but it also couldn't be lacking in the music of string instruments and strings, decadent and lingering sounds. Somewhere the familiar phoenix courting phoenix sounded. Perhaps it was because it carried 120% of deep affection and was very sentimental. Following that, the poem Phoenix Courting Phoenix wasn't recited in cadence, but was sung by a clear female voice. Unsurprisingly, Luo Jingbo once again became the focus of this kind of people. One didn't need to think to know that it was directed at Luo Jingbo. When they looked at Luo Jingbo, if it wasn't ambiguous, it was envy, jealousy and hatred. This voice seems to be Huaiqin Pleasure Boat's courtesan Lin Chuchu. It doesn't seem to be, it's definitely her. Lin Chuchu only sells her skills and not her body. How many people want to redeem her and take her as a concubine? Even the imperial family's relatives and the sons of dukes and marquises were all rejected by her. Looking at her actions today, it seems that she has taken a fancy to Luo Gongzi. This Lin Chuchu is a first-class talented woman with high standards. However, it doesn't seem too surprising that she would take a fancy to Luo Gongzi. It's just that I originally thought she was Jin Qinhuang's person. Speaking of which, as the courtesan of the pleasure boat, she actually only sold her skills and not her body. After rejecting so many people, it was absolutely impossible that she didn't have a backer behind her. And it was said that the master of Huaiqin Pleasure Boat was Jin Qinhuang. It was said that the beauties inside had to wait for him to pick before they could come out to receive guests. This rumor had never been confirmed, but the possibility was very high. When the song ended, Lin Chuchu, who was hiding behind the rocks, appeared. She was wearing a white chiffon dress and a thin veil on her face. Her eyes were very firm and her goal was very clear. She leisurely walked towards Luo Jingbo. The surrounding people all had a kind of as expected feeling. And the people surrounding Luo Jingbo gave her face and stepped aside. Although many people were jeering, Luo Jingbo's mood was actually not very good. This kind of luck with women, he really didn't like it. Especially when the other party used his wedding song to express her love for him, there was a kind of feeling of being defiled. In fact, Luo Jingbo couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. The women who came out of brothels and pleasure boats belonged to the lower 9 classes. The secular world was like this. And Luo Jingbo, who was born in a scholarly family, didn't like beauty. He occasionally went to brothels, but it was just to sit and talk. Therefore he couldn't be blamed for looking down on these women. Chuchu pays respect to Luo Gongzi. In the end, Luo Jingbo still had a good upbringing and couldn't do things that would casually throw his face. Miss doesn't need to be so polite. Lin Chuchu stood up straight and looked at Luo Jingbo. Chuchu admires Gongzi and is willing to serve Gongzi. Many people were in an uproar. What was that? This was throwing herself at him. The capital's #1 pleasure boat's courtesan was throwing herself at Luo Jingbo. It seemed that even the capital's #1 Gongzi Sun Yilin didn't receive this treatment. At this moment, countless daggers flew towards Luo Jingbo. Luo Jingbo frowned. Miss, I'm sorry. Forgive this one for not being able to accept. Lin Chuchu's eyes faintly revealed disbelief, but more than that, she was heartbroken. Chuchu, can I ask why? Why? Of course this Gongzi doesn't like it. Of course this Gongzi's little sister doesn't like it even more. Just as Luo Jingbo was thinking about how to answer, Hei Mei stood up. Do you still need to ask this question? Hei Mei, don't be rude. Luo Jingbo softly reprimanded. Third young master, this servant saw that you were in a difficult position. Before we left, young mistress had instructed us sisters to take care of Gongzi. Hei Mei raised her eyebrows and chuckled. She especially emphasized the word take care. Luo Jingbo's lips curled into a rather helpless yet doting smile. You are my little sister's people. Young mistress borrowed us. During this period of time outside, naturally we will follow young mistress's wishes. Bai Xiao also added with a smile. How could Lin Chuchu not understand? Although it was said to be for show, it was actually to prevent other women from getting close to him. Perhaps it was out of resentment, or perhaps it was out of unwillingness. One of the former 2 beauties of the capital is actually the Rouge Tiger. Even if they had agreed before leaving, Luo Jingbo was still very unhappy, especially the word former. Was it hinting at Yi Jia's current appearance? Monsieur Rude. Lin Chuchu's tears fell. There was probably nothing more hurtful than this. How can you speak like this? The servant girl behind Lin Chu saw that she was wronged and immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. Lin Chu hurriedly stopped her. I'm sorry, young Master Luo. Chu will take her leave now. She turned and left rather awkwardly. Jingbo really doesn't know how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Even such a beauty is rejected by the human heart. Prince Rui joked. That's right. Even if he can't bring her back, he can just find a small house outside to raise her. The others echoed. Raising a mistress outside, unless water had entered his brain, he wouldn't do such a thing. Apart from possibly disturbing the peace of the house and making his wife sad, it also affected his conduct and naturally related to his future career. For a woman on a pleasure boat, causing his wife to be sad at home. How can a real man do that? Quite a few people suffered from this strike and the scene fell silent for a moment. Because there were large areas of streets and houses outside the moat. It was said that because the population of Qiyuan increased, especially the imperial city, it had no choice but to expand outward. Miss Great Elder Princess asked someone to invite you to her place. It's my fault. I should go to visit my foster mother. Jingwan got up and straightened her sleeves. Jingwan went to the shed of Great Elder Princess's mansion with Nanny Gong and 2 maids. Along the way she met many girls from other mansions. No matter what the reason was, at least they greeted her in a friendly manner. When Jingwan arrived at the shed of Great Elder Princess's mansion, she happened to meet Wan Fengfei. Wan Fengfei was still smiling gently and elegantly, looking very beautiful. However, this kind of coincidence was not the first time that Jingwan had encountered such a coincidence. It made Jingwan feel as if she was haunted by a ghost, which was really not a good feeling. The curtain was lifted and Wan Fengfei let Jingwan show up. Jingwan didn't refuse. Because of the relationship between Great Elder Princess and Wan Fengfei, it was not impolite. Moreover, she had a feeling that if she declined modestly, something else might happen. Wan, come here. Come here. Great Elder Princess beamed. Jingwan still squatted, saluted and stepped forward. Foster mother. Alas, good girl. Great Elder Princess pulled her to sit beside her. On the other side of her was Wengzhu Yuyao. Great Elder Princess then saw Wan Fengfei, who was 1 step behind. Wan Fengfei is also here. Sit down. Wan Fengfei bowed gracefully. Thank you, Great Elder Princess. She stepped forward and sat down beside Great Elder Princess. The difference between the position beside Great Elder Princess and the position below Great Elder Princess was like the difference between the main position and the secondary position. Did it show the difference between their identities? Wan Fengfei lowered her eyelids, but in an instant she smiled like a flower. Both of you are good girls. If there is a chance in the future, you should kiss each other more. Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan and Wan Fengfei and said so. A girl next to her covered her mouth and laughed. Of course we should kiss each other more. After all, they will be a family in the future. Great Elder Princess was slightly stunned and then stopped smiling. At this moment she remembered that not only her foster daughter was betrothed to Prince Jin, but Wan Fengfei was also betrothed to him as his concubine. Speaking of this, she was helpless. It was all her brother's fault. It was also her fault. She didn't realize that Bu Ran wouldn't call both of them here at the same time. So she glanced at the girl who spoke indifferently. She was just a girl of the Jiang family. Because of Great Elder Princess's glance, the girl couldn't help but turn pale. Jingwan pretended not to hear anything and said nothing. Wan Fengfei was even worse. She didn't even lift her eyelids. Probably in order to break the awkwardness, someone proposed to play Madiao. Great Elder Princess agreed. Jingwan originally wanted to refuse, but Great Elder Princess asked her to sit down. So Jingwan sat on the seat above Wan Fengfei. For this kind of card, Jingwan, as she said to Great Elder Princess, only knew how to play, so she was relatively slow. In the 3rd round, when Jingwan played a card and Wan Fengfei took a card, the back of Jingwan's hand was scratched by Wan Fengfei's nails for some reason. The skin was broken and red. Wan Fengfei hurriedly apologized. Jingwan felt a little strange, but she didn't say anything and pressed her hand with a handkerchief. Well, it's because 3rd Miss Luo's skin is too tender. Even Great Elder Princess couldn't help but echo. Speaking of maintenance, Jingwan smiled and said, I took the prescription and cooperated with Rouge Pavilion. The finished product is out, but I don't know if it has been sold. Girls naturally like this kind of thing. They discussed it with great interest and didn't notice the dim light flashing through Wan Fengfei's eyes. You're tuning in to the Biao's Wuxiao Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.